Welcome to fan on Restream. My name is Ransom. Joining me is Bill. Edwards. I want to take a second to give him a shout out for putting this group together and setting everything up. It is much appreciated, man. And with that being said, the Chicago are you can make picks. You can make stream or message. If cover have the first pick in the draft, I've got the second pick. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm for cover 11 to officially selection.
I'm going to be honest. If I'm him, I say build with Fields and take Marvin Harrison Jr. here, but you could make the argument to go quarterback here too, but I'd go Marvin Harrison Jr. if I'm him and build around Fields.
You can tackle it, get Harrison Jr. and a left tackle available.
I'm curious. I think Fields has a bum rap with the offensive coordinating talent that he has. I gets us as a play caller is just not what Chicago needs. If I am in cover 11 shoes, I'm saying we're going to build around Fields. Let's take Harrison Jr. at 1, and then at 4, when they're on the board again, let's get the best defensive talent available, whether that's Latu or you go McKinstry there. I don't think you're locked into quarterback, and I don't think they're locked into tackle either. I think that you can, with how deep the tackle class is, you could get a guy in the early second round that falls there, a Fuaga, even a Patrick Paul. There's several early 2 second round grades that they could take. So if I'm cover 11 here, I go Marvin Harrison Jr. at 1 and then Latu at 4. But again, his pick, he could go quarterback tier 2, and then obviously then you're sending Fields out for additional capital there to a team like Atlanta, Los Angeles Rams could be a dark horse for him as well. So.
And the New England Patriots are going to select Caleb Williams. I am going to select Caleb Williams, number 2 overall. So the Cardinals are up at 3. The Ravens pylon joined. I think pylon perspective, the Ravens has joined. Hey, what's going on, man? From Colton is for Arizona at 3. Let's see what handle they are. Okay, pick and spreads. Aspiring football scout. covered
Yeah, Arizona, with how the board lines up versus what their needs are, it's tough to really slot something into them, because at this point you would love for them to get Marvin Harrison Jr. because they don't need a top quarterback. You could make an argument for tackle here. I don't know if it's really the argument you'd want to make, but you'd love for Marvin Harrison Jr. to fall to them and then build around Kyler Murray. I just don't know if you go Neighbors or Bowers here. I don't think Bowers is as high a talent as some people do. And some people have talked about him being better than Kyle Pitts. I don't agree with that. I think Pitts was a better talent than Bowers was. At this point, if I'm Arizona, you sell the pick to the highest bidder and try to trade down. If you're going to stick here, it's a coin flip between Neighbors and Bowers. Realistically, I would lean probably Neighbors in that scenario. I just think 3 is too high for a tight end, even a tight end of Bowers caliber.
live. That's good. I am going to turn the camera off because I've noticed that whenever okay, so you're on the clock. Thanks for joining. I am going to So we got few people here, and I'll put the simulator back on once the Cardinals pick. So, what do you guys think of the draft so far? I'll turn the simulator back on. 11 pick Marvin Harris Jr. You can break it down. We got a ton of people in the chat about what you think until the wait, there's a buyout in DJ Humphrey's contract? Let me see that. Let me look at that on Spot Track really quickly here. I did not know there was an out in his contract, like a buyout clause. Just double
I was
check.
going to say the other thing too is that a guard is a need for Arizona here, so I wouldn't be so concerned about them not taking a tackle. You can take a top tackle like Olu or Alt here and kick Humphreys inside or kick Paris Johnson inside because he played guard at Ohio State.
I think Humphreys started at Florida before he moved to tackle. I might be in that, but
yeah, Olu's the kind of player I would have a really hard time imagining a team saying, hey, our two guys are so good, we can't take this guy. If you're in this situation, especially as the Cardinals, because you want Marvin Harrison Jr. probably. At this point, he's off the board. It's probably your worst case scenario if you can't trade out. So you go get in there a generational prospect, and I don't think Humphreys is telling you you can't take a guy like Olu in the draft.
So that's and I'll put the screen back up. So sounds like most of people want us to go with Humphrey.
Yeah, I'd say Olu's probably your pick here because even if Humphreys doesn't have a buyout or Humphreys resigns, you have two guys in Humphreys and Paris Johnson who played guard in college, and easily one can kick inside, but there's not a guard here that you would feel comfortable taking this high. Most of them are going to be tackles. Latham played a little guard, but I don't know if I would want to spend a number 3 overall pick on guard. Edge could be another conversation starter if you want to go that route. Do you want to spend your first pick on defense knowing that you have offensive problems across the board?
All right.
I would stick with Olu. All right, let's see if this audio is working.
Oh, thank God.
No, you're good. So it looks like we're going to go with Olu here at 3 to Arizona. So Colton, you're on the clock at 4 at Washington. Washington's one of those tough places because you could make an argument for Drake May here. You really could, but at the same time, you could sit where you're at with Howell at quarterback and stick for another year. Big need probably for them, maybe edge, especially with them trading away everybody on that defensive line. Could be a Latu pick here. Could be a Dallas Turner pick here, who's played in and out at Alabama.
Man, I think if Latu didn't have the injury concerns, that'd be your pick here. But if you've got Drake May on the board at 4, and I'm sure you got a lot of teams coming up here soon that would love to have him, I just as the Commanders, I would have to think you'd be looking into trade back scenarios because you're going to get a king's ransom for that pick, and you didn't think you were going to come in and be able to get that in this scenario. Plus, like it was said before, Fashanu's off the board now, so it's not really developing for Arizona and Washington very well unless they move back, and Washington's got the opportunity.
Absolutely. I think both of these spots in 4 and 5 here, I think in Chicago coming up, I think are both prime trade up spots because you look at the Giants at 6, they could probably use a quarterback. Jets at 7, I don't think are going to use quarterback.
Yeah.
Titans at 8, maybe Saints at 9. So I think if Drake May doesn't go here and there's no trade ups, then you could probably see him start to tumble down the board.
Maybe it's hard to see that, but I mean, you got to have a team that's willing to trade up. Man, I mean, if I was the Jets, like I would make that move, but I know they aren't going to because they're all in on Rodgers right now. Even if it would probably be smart to bring in a prospect like this for very little you have to give up at this point and develop him. Maybe the Giants would be a team. Tennessee, I know, thinks they got their guy in Levis. New Orleans could move up. Tampa Bay might be a sneaky one.
Yeah, I would say if he doesn't go here to 4 to the Commanders, he's going to fall to 10 to Tampa Bay, just because Tampa Bay needs a quarterback. And I have a sneaky feeling that they're probably going to clean house. Bowles will be gone. Evans, I think, is in the final year of his deal. Baker's on a 1-year deal on his end. I really see Tampa Bay probably cleaning house here. So
yeah,
and it looks like the pick is in from Colton. The Commanders have selected Dallas Turner, the edge from Alabama.
Yeah, that is definitely not how I thought it would end up going for them. But if you got to stay put, I get Turner being the pick there, and definitely a need for them.
Right, definitely a need for them. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. So Chicago is back on the clock here at number 5. Looking at what's available, if I'm Chicago, I'm looking at the best edge rusher available or the best defensive player available. I could be talked into a corner here with Kool-Aid McKinstry, maybe a defensive end player. But if I'm Chicago, I'm trying to sell this pick to the highest bidder for Drake May, who's starting to tumble down the board.
Yeah, or you pick Drake May. But the thing is, I think if you're Chicago and you wanted a quarterback in this draft, you pick him first overall. Like you're not picking Marvin Harrison Jr. and then go getting your quarterback. It's very rare that we see teams wait for a franchise quarterback. Like even with Tennessee last year, they picked Skoronski first. I think the only reason why that happens and they ended up getting Will Levis is because they didn't think Will Levis was going to be available that late in the draft.
I agree. I think with the way Cover 11 started going with Marvin Harrison Jr., if he wanted one of these quarterbacks in Caleb or Drake, he would have picked him here at number 1. Looks like Cover 11 says he's going to roll with Fields and take a 5th-year option, which I think is the right move. I think what's going to happen, Chicago's going to clean house. I think if Eberflus stays, they're going to go out and get an OC. I particularly like Ben Johnson, but I think he's probably going to end up as a head coach somewhere.
Yeah.
I think you rebuild your offensive coordinator staff and get weapons for Fields. And then if it doesn't work with Fields after all that, at that point, then you go out and the new staff gets their guy next year.
It's definitely one way you could go about it, and I love the player that you get in that scenario with Marvin Harrison Jr. But man, for me with Fields, I I just think this is probably one of the last years they have this opportunity to pick a quarterback this early, and we know the Bears have struggled to pick quarterbacks. I'm not fully sold on Fields. I think that he has a lot of great things about him that are different than just passing the ball. You know, specifically the rushing ability is incredible. That's all great, but at a point, like you have to be a consistent passer. And I think it was only just until this year he hadn't thrown for 300 yards in a game his whole career. And so there's definitely a concern, but man, like if you went and picked Brock Bowers here, I mean, I know they got Komet, but if you load up on offense with that or neighbors, like you've you've got everything you need to have Fields be a great quarterback if he can be that.
Right. At that point, I don't think offensive linemen should be a pick here. I think if you're not going to go the best defensive player available, you're going to load up with Bowers or you're going to go with Neighbors. It looks like Cover 11's looking to move the pick here.
Yeah.
And I am getting word from my sources. Looks like the Saints potentially could be looking to move up here.
That'd be good. Be very good for them.
Yeah, Saints could be looking to move up, could be looking to move up for Jaden Daniels, sorry. Looking at three different players at once. So we'll see what comes of that. I think if you don't go defense here, you have to then debate Bowers or Neighbors. And I would go Bowers even with having Cole Kmet because you also have DJ Moore as well. So
Yeah.
do you want to roll out Marvin Harrison Jr. and DJ Moore with Kmet, or do you want to roll out Marvin Harrison Jr., Bowers, and then Moore? And I think even though Kmet is good, I don't think he's great. I think Bowers could probably beat him out for a starting job on day one. So
100%. Yeah, but you got to get both those guys on the field. And I think that comes down to who's going to be running the offense. Do you get a guy who runs two tight end sets and, 12, 13 personnel? I don't know if that's the case. I don't know who's going to be coaching the Bears next year. We'll see. But if you're concerned about that, Neighbors would have to be the pick at that point. But Bowers is the kind of player that it's hard to go wrong with him. As basically any team on the board. It's a pretty easy layup pick. So I'd 100% be on board for that.
Right. So looks like we're still waiting to see if we're going to do a trade here.
Yeah.
Or if we're going to move forward with Chicago. If Chicago stands pat here, you have edge rusher versus corner.
Yeah.
So you're looking at probably either Terry and Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, or maybe Nate Wiggins versus Chop Robinson, Latu. I think you have to go edge at that point.
Yeah. Latu would be the guy, I think, for Chicago. Verse is really close too. Those are my two top guys at edge this year. Latu was lower for me a lot of the year, but I think just based off the way he played at the end of the year, I mean, it's something we have not seen from a lot of pass rushers coming out into the NFL. And it's hard for me to imagine him being a miss. And if you get to go pick a guy like Latu, now you've got a really good defensive line. You have a really high ceiling for that unit as well because you got Montez Sweat, who, even if you didn't like the trade, he's a player who's going to continue to get better. He has not reached his ceiling at this point. You get Latu across from that, who's really good. And then another guy that maybe isn't talked about a whole lot now is Gervon Dexter, who there were some concerns about him coming out, but he is one of those high upside players. And so I think for Chicago, you basically, with this pick, you just got the opportunity to make one of your units on your team great, go from good to great, or even average to great, depending on which one it is. And that's something that a rebuilding team like them really needs to do.
Right. Looks like that we do have a trade. It is official. It looks like Chicago is going to trade back with New Orleans here. It looks like deals of the trade still coming up here, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to put it into the simulator. So
Yeah.
Just to see if we can make it happen here. Just trying to make some picks here. Just trying to make it happen. Because it looks like 945 and 137 is what we're looking at.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering if it's next year's first round or two or the second, but it's so close in the first round that I think they could possibly get away just giving up capital this year.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get PFN to actually make the selection here, actually make the trade. Okay, Utopia was able to make that trade, so since that's the case, we'll go ahead. We'll take Drake May off the board here. All right, so looking now, it looks like the Giants are up here at number 6. They're probably kicking themselves for not jumping up and getting Drake May, but looking at them, I would try to trade out of this one. I really would, because their needs safety, linebacker, offensive guard. They don't really need tackles on the edges, need more interior help than anything. It just doesn't line up with what's on the board here. I could be convinced of taking Alt, but then now you have to have the conversation who moves inside, Evan Neal or Andrew Thomas, and I don't think either of them would particularly fit inside.
Yeah, I don't think Evan Neal wants to play guard. It's pretty clear, but at the same time, the way he's played, I don't think you could be making too many demands at this point. But
right,
man, I think for them, this would be Neighbors. That would be who I'd pick, at least if I was on the board. But there's still a lot of that almost S tier kind of talent at this point. And so, Bowers may be an option if you didn't have Darren Waller there, but Waller's getting older.
And that's what I was leaning towards too. I think with Waller's age, I don't know offhand what his contract status looks like. We're gonna take a look at Spot Track and see what we've got for Waller, but I would think with Darren Waller up there in years, he's clearly up there in terms of injury. I mean, you're talking about a dead cap hit of roughly $7 million if you cut him going into his 32.
3 years.
Yeah, you're talking 3 years, about $35 million. I don't know if you cut him, but I don't know if you keep him here. I would probably lean towards Bowers over Neighbors. I think just because Bowers is that top tier talent. So
yeah, and another option they could go with, just based off what they're lacking in the receiver core, if they want to address that, they could also consider a guy like Keon Coleman. But for me, he's not really that same tier as Neighbors, and so it's like we talked about. You'd like to trade back, but
the question is now you've got to try to find somebody who's willing to trade up, and if you're going to trade up, you're going to do it. You're going to do it for a quarterback, and I just don't know if there's a quarterback taking a pick here. So looks like the pick may go down to a general consensus for that, which if that's the case, then I would probably say Bowers here.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
No. And let's see here. Neighbors or Coleman here looks like for the Giants. So it's a conversation between the two. Just like you said, I would lean towards Neighbors. I think he's slightly better in terms of the fit. in terms of that offense versus Keon Coleman?
I think he's just the better player, straight up. He's the highest grade prospect for me, a receiver at this point. And for Coleman, I think he's a great player too. But I think if I'm picking a guy like that, 6 is a little rich for me. I know with Neighbors, you're going to get a really good player for sure. And you're also getting someone from LSU, which, if you didn't know, had a lot of really good players come out recently at receiver.
Right. I mean, Giants picked one in Odell Beckham Jr. way back in the day, so they didn't go wrong with that one. So can't really go wrong here. So
that's a good point.
I'm thinking it's probably going to be Neighbors here on this one. I'll let Utopia make that call since he'll be in charge of consensus. All right, so it looks like it is going to be Malik Neighbors here at number 6 to the New York Giants. So Jets are on the clock now. I don't know who had the Jets offhand. But so if you're the Jets, I think this is the dream scenario for you with Joe Alt being here at 7, a guy who probably could have gone all the way up at potentially number 3, 4, 5 even. I think Alt's probably, if you're hitching your wagon to Aaron Rodgers again, I think you go Joe Alt.
Yeah, Alt's got to be the guy. I mean, that you see what happened 4 plays into the season, and if you can't address offensive linemen when you have a guy like that on the board, I think that's a big disaster for them. The only other pick I think could be considered if you didn't have the need to tackle would be a guy like Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
Because I think they could absolutely use that on the offense, and they keep him for a long time. But I just think tackle is a bigger need for this team at this point.
Right.
They should have got it last year.
Yeah, and that's why I could be convinced if you want to sit here and say we're going to go Brock Bowers as a tight end prospect, especially because the Jets tight end is Tyler Conklin, and I'm not saying he's the great, not saying he's worse. He's kind of average, middle of the road. I could be convinced if you go Bowers here. I think you go Alt. If you want to have a conversation about tackle fit, maybe this is a spot for Latham. I mean, I think Alt is probably a more fine-tuned prospect, but I think Latham has the higher ceiling. I think Alt, he's a great S-tier prospect, but he is what he's going to be, whereas Latham may not be that higher level, but he could potentially go into that higher level.
Yeah.
So,
do we got a guy for the Jets right now?
I know they were talking about it. I think it's Ash Glover Hockey who's on the clock.
Okay.
I know Utopia is working on getting reloaded here, just because not everyone's available to draft, and obviously this being the first go around, we're gonna go with consensus. We're not gonna give someone a 5th round talent at pick number 12 unless they own a team that just doesn't know what they're doing whatsoever. But
yeah,
I think it has to be, you have to have the conversation of Alt versus Bowers here.
Yeah, 100%. This is one of the few picks I think we're going to have left where it's just kind of simple. You got 2 guys that it's got to come down to. But you never know what the Jets will do in real life, though, because, I don't think it was a bad pick last year, but they went for Will Anderson. Or not Will Anderson, sorry. Will McDonald, the Will.
Yeah.
In the first round. My bad there. But
no, they want Will Anderson, absolutely.
Yeah, they'd be very happy to have Will Anderson right now. But, Will McDonald was the guy we thought might sneak up in the first round, but he went top half. Yeah. And so you never know what they're going to do, but I don't think that was a terrible pick. I think they got screwed with the tackle going off the board before.
Yeah, and I think that's what happened. I think they had to scramble. I think the tackle going off the board before them. I'm not saying Will McDonald was a bad pick by any means. I had a late 1 grade on him, so if you could have got him in the 28 to 33 range, he would have been great. But they picked him at 15 or 16. I think it was absolutely probably too high of a pick.
Yeah, is a bit high for me. And there's other guys that would have been there for the Jets too.
Yeah.
Anton Harrison being one. Obviously, like for me, I'm a little biased. I'm a Jags fan, and they picked him, and he's been all right. But you had guys available still at tackle at that point, and usually you want to draft best player available. But when you go all in like that, you have to make sure that you're ready for those couple seasons. You have your guy, and they just didn't do it.
Right. And that's the thing. And the concerning part, obviously, is life after Rodgers too, because they can load up on talent around Rodgers, but going for the life after, you could make the argument, do you want to pay a tight end down the road or do you want to pay a premier left tackle down the road? I don't know if they want to make that payment now, but
yeah, it would have to be something they address before the draft if they were to pick Brock Bowers here. And maybe there's teams that would go trade a guy. Sometimes that happens. Although I know, like when the trade deadline came by, the Jets were saying that they didn't know anyone who was trading offensive linemen, and the only guy that ended up going, I think, was Ezra Cleveland, which they weren't even aware of.
Yeah.
But you never know in the off season because there'll be teams that could consider it. I know, like the Bengals got Jonah Williams that they've had some concerns about keeping him long term. Almost traded him. Jacksonville has 3 tackles at this point. 2 of them kind of have injury concerns. You don't really want to keep both those guys at this point. So there'll be options maybe, but in this scenario, they don't have that guy.
No, and that's why I think they're going to go Joe Alt here.
Yeah.
But let's defer to the chat and Utopia. Do we want to do a consensus for Joe Alt here at number 7, or do we want to go ahead and give him just a little more time? All right, I've got Colton saying Joe Alt. I'm all for Joe Alt at this point. I could be talked into Bowers too, but I think it's going to be Alt here.
Good pick.
All right. Looks like we are going to go ahead and lock in Joe Alt here to the Jets at number 7. So Tennessee on the board now here at number 8. You're probably looking the best offensive lineman to protect Levis if you say Levis is your guy. Also, maybe another wide receiver to go across from Treylon Burks. I don't know if you could have the conversation with Bowers here at tight end. It's worth a conversation, but I don't know if that's really the pick you want to make. I would probably go Keon Coleman if I'm picking for Tennessee, but you could make the conversation for Bowers.
Yeah, Coleman could be really good. I think this is one of the picks where it's hard to go wrong with who you select. There's just so many opportunities to address something I think they need. And there's few positions that they cannot look at this point. Because I don't think I can never pronounce the name of the tight end they have, but the guy they have there right now, Chig and Okoronkwo, something like that. Yeah, like he's all right. You can start him, but he's not a guy you're like, hey, I can't draft Brock Bowers because we got this guy in the building. So you can look at him. You could go after some secondary pieces for this team. Wide receiver is a huge need, but you're picking 8, and the top 2 guys are off the board now. Offensive tackle would be really good. but you're down to that second tier already, and you're in the top 10. So
right, and that's I think where at this point you're going to have to trust your scouting department and try to find that high ceiling guy.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if there is one here. Looks like Breaking Fantasy is going to go with pick is in here. All right, Breaking Fantasy is going to go Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback from Alabama. I will tell you, he's probably the best corner in this draft. He's quarterback 1 for me. It's a little spicy at top 10 selection for me. I had him, between that 10 and 15 range to a team like, Chargers, Buffalo, Denver, even. But I think it's a good pick for them, especially with just the way the board fell.
Yeah, he's definitely in that top mix of corners, and I think that group's really close right now. There's not anyone to me that's like so good you're going to pick him in the top 10 necessarily, but teens is a good spot. If they can't trade back and they feel like that's where they need to go and they love the player, I get it at 8. But it's really just choosing the guy you think is the best fit for your team. I'm not sure exactly what Tennessee runs on defense, if they're more of a press team like man coverage or play zone. But I don't think they're going to get a bad player at all in getting McKinstry over there.
Right. So looks like Chicago back on the clock here at number 9. With them going Marvin Harrison at number 1 overall, we know that quarterback is probably not on their clock here, and cover 11 still has a lot of top talent. Like you talked about and alluded to, Brock Bowers is still here.
Yeah.
And you could get Brock Bowers and Marvin Harrison Jr. And at that point, Fields with a competent play caller has no excuses. I just don't see any reason why they wouldn't select Bowers. You could also start to look at defensive tackle, guys like Jared Verse, Chop Robinson, Latu, all still here at number 9. So definitely some great defensive talent if they want to attack that side of the ball.
Yeah, a lot of good options. This would definitely be Bowers if I was on the clock. You think about it, you're getting the 2 best players at their skill positions. They all are pass catchers. They're all going to help out your offense. You need to figure out Fields is the guy. And you not only would do that, but in addition, you're also getting an extra 2nd-round pick, and I think a 4th or a 5th is where the other one landed.
Yeah, so I think 4th or 5th. Yeah, you got an additional 2nd and an additional 4th or 5th. So, all right. Pick is in, and cover 11 is going with Brock Bowers out of Georgia. That is a smart selection here. So, Tampa Bay on the clock now at number 10. Quarterback is probably the big need for them. I don't know if I feel confident taking a quarterback here because the only 2 that I have a 1st-round grade on are Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix Jr.
Same.
I don't know if I feel comfortable as top 10 selections. I have mid to late 1st grades on them for different reasons. Penix because of medical issues. Jaden Daniels, while he has arm talent, he's more of a fastball thrower than an actual quarterback for me. But you could convince me to take one of those guys here. That same token, you could also, any spot along the offensive line, tackle, guard, center, safety, JC Latham, you could take him, put him in any one of your spots 1 through 5, and I think probably would do well for them.
Yeah, I will say this. If Mike Evans did walk this offseason, they would have a golden opportunity here to get a player that would be somewhat similar to the way he's been for Tampa Bay by getting Keon Coleman. So that would have to be a consideration for me too, but we don't really know what the scenario is necessarily. I'm sure the person picking does, but if that's a Mike Evans-less Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that'd be where I'm going with this pick.
Right. And I think we have to talk about cover 11 going Marvin Harrison at 1 and then turning around and Brock Bowers at 9. You're talking about
2. So like you have DJ Moore, Marvin Harrison, your Cole, and Brock is your weapons for best.
Yeah, I think initially, just off-based initial, I think cover 11 probably just knocked a grand slam out of the park with those 2 picks and just the way the board fell here. So,
no doubt.
So Tampa Bay on the clock. I don't know who had Tampa Bay offhand, but I think if we're talking Evans walking, it's Keon Coleman. If you want to go offensive line, it's J.C. Latham. And if you want to go quarterback, you have to have the conversation of Daniels versus Penix, I think are probably the two guys that you'd look at.
Yeah, two really good players to consider. I kind of wish in this scenario that New Orleans had went after Daniels and maybe Tampa was the team trading up. But
Right.
this whole draft's kind of fallen sort of weird. You had Marvin Harrison Jr. first overall. It just kind of created a ripple effect. I don't really disagree with the pick, but then you got Arizona. It's kind of out of their selection. They take Washington's, and Washington may take in their teams, and you just started to get a lot of different outcomes than maybe what you expect going in.
Right. I think the other issue is seeing Drake May fall. Quarterbacks always get pushed up draft boards. I think we all can agree with that. But seeing Drake May, who is probably 1A, 1B to Caleb Williams, different spices for different people, to see him fall to 5, let alone, you could be argued that he could go number 1 or number 2, depending on if New England and Chicago go quarterback. So to see him drop, it pushes talent down the board, which that's where teams like Chicago take advantage and take guys like Bowers.
Yeah, it's still just an absurd pick that they got him at 9 and traded back for that.
Yeah.
I think regardless of what anyone does at this point, they had the best draft. It's hard to compete with it.
Right. Hands down, I think. So I know. So Brennan's talking Jaden Daniels for Tampa Bay. I would try to trade back if you can. If you can't, I think here at 10, you have to stick and take the quarterback.
Yeah.
I would say Daniels. I will defer obviously to Colton and Mr. Draft Utopia, who's running the show here. But I would see either Jaden Daniels or you go J.C. Latham, pick a spot on the offensive line and plug him in. But you don't really want to take a guy like Latham, he's a very good offensive tackle, but he's not the greatest. You could be argued Fuaga could be a better talent. You could be argued some other talent on the board. You could be, I don't think you'd go for him here, number 10. I think if you're number 10, I don't think Bowles is still with Tampa at this point. I would say new staff, new coaching staff, you go and get your guy, and I think it'd be Jaden Daniels at this point.
Yeah. 100%. Saying Latham maybe be an option here, it looks like.
Looks like Latham is going to be the consensus for Tampa Bay. So if we were going to go ahead, we're going to go ahead and lock in Mr. J.C. Latham to Alabama here at number 10 for Tampa Bay, if everybody wants to lock that in.
That's a really good pick still. I think my thing with Latham from the get-go when I watched him and looked at some of his stats was the penalties going into this year. And from what I remember, he actually did clean that up a little bit.
Right. He at 6'6", 305, he has a very imposing frame. He downhill run blocker. He will open up holes for that Tampa Bay offense, which has struggled to run the ball for sure. So I could see Latham here. I think at this point, we're going to go ahead. We're going to lock in Latham to Tampa Bay here at number 10. So that's going to put the Las Vegas Raiders on the clock if anyone has any objections. Nope, we're going to lock it in for J.C. Latham at Tampa Bay. And the Raiders, they were jumping at the gun, ready to go here at number 11 overall. They're going to go Zahan Newton, the defensive tackle out of Illinois. It's a big mountain of a guy, 6'2", 290 to 295. He can rush inside, outside. I think he's probably best at nose tackle at the next level, but you could just as easily say you could put him inside or outside.
Yeah, he was a fun watch on film.
Absolutely, especially against some of those Big Ten offensive lines, just an absolute tear when he's on tape.
Yeah.
So Chargers on the clock here at number 12. The Chargers are a fun team in terms of needs. I would say someone in the secondary, whether you go corner or you go safety. I don't know if there's a corner on the board that I would feel comfortable taking here at 12. I could be convinced of Terry and Arnold, but it would have to take some serious convincing. I could also be convinced of receiver, but I just don't think that receiver is as high a need for a team picking here. I think you have to go the defensive side of the ball. I think with what that Chargers team has done defensively versus teams, I mean, they were up 27-0 against the Jaguars last year in the playoffs, and Jaguars came back and won because the Chargers couldn't get off the field. So I think defense has to be the pick here. I think you could go corner. I think safety is probably the bigger need, but I don't know if there's a safety on the board that I would feel comfortable. A pure safety like Kinchins, I have a late one grade that it's just too early. I would think that we're looking probably corner receiver, but Mr. T-Star from the chat, he is on the clock for the Chargers here. So let's see what he's got.
I would think Latu or DeJean be really good for this team. DeJean, you're getting a guy you can really play anywhere in that secondary and help him out there, and you know he's just going to be a really good football player coming in. It's just where is he going to play,
right?
Ultimately, and the other option would be interesting is Latu, because I know maybe pass rush isn't the biggest need for them, but Khalil Mack, I mean, you talk about the Jaguars-Chargers game. He said just the other day that he almost retired after that. So you know this is the player who's kind of getting near that point. And you could get a guy who's going to be local from UCLA, same state, to come in and play for your team, you know, whether he's a starter or not. I'm sure he gets a lot of snaps and ends up being someone you're really happy you took down the road.
Right. I think that's where you're leaning and that's what T-Star is looking at. The discussion is between Kalen King from Penn State and Rome Odunze out of Washington. I am not a King supporter. I have a mid to late second grade on him. I would think it would be a serious reach if he goes King. So if you're talking between those two prospects, you have to go Odunze and hope on the backswing there's a corner there. But I'm with you. I think DeJean should be the pick, but it looks like that the pick is in from T-Star. He is going to go Rome Odunze, wide receiver from Washington. So that is going to put the Buffalo Bills now on the clock. I have no problems going wide receiver here. I think you get Justin Herbert, another talent to throw to. At that point, you're going to try to outscore everyone. And hope on the backside you can get a corner or safety in round 2. Maybe a guy like Kitchens if he somehow falls.
Yeah, I mean, I think Odunze would be useful to them. 100% I would, but I think if you make this move, you're pretty much admitting defeat at one of your receivers, and probably Quentin Johnston at this point. And that's kind of hard for a team to do. I don't think they would do that in real life, but you know, as a fan and as someone who's trying to think of this long term, I don't think it would be terrible because Quentin Johnston's got a lot of questions right now, and even if you know he figures it out at some point, Mike Williams is probably going to go down in week 2, and Keenan Allen's getting older.
Right.
At some point, you need to replace him. So,
and I think that's the big thing. I think you're now trying to say, all right, well, we're going to punt on Quentin Johnston. I think you probably look to move Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. If you're going to go Odunze, you're going to look to move one of those for either draft capital or maybe secondary help if you can find it. So,
yeah, probably Mike out of the two. I know he's younger, but it just has not worked out on that second contract, unfortunately. And there's teams that would go trade for him.
Right. So Buffalo on the clock now here at number 13. I think this is probably one of the bigger surprises to see the Bills picking in the top half of the first round. It's the same conversation that you have with the Chargers that you have with the Bills. It's secondary help. It's wide receiver help to get Diggs a running buddy. So I think it has to be, if I'm looking at it, I go Keon Coleman here. I think Coleman on Coleman one side, Diggs on the other. I think Buffalo would just tear up the league with those two.
Yeah, those would be some really good guys to get on board there. I don't know what I'd do for Buffalo. I don't know too much about their situation other than that the season's been a disaster.
Right.
But everyone knows that. It's unfortunate for them.
Right. And I mean, you could have the conversation too around edge linebacker, especially with all the things surrounding Von Miller too.
Yeah.
Do you say, all right, well, we're going to plan for Von Miller to be extended absence away from the team? Do we go with a guy like a Chop Robinson or a Latu here, or even maybe at linebacker? I don't think I think Jeremiah Trotter would probably be more of an inside guy, which I don't know if there's an edge backer here. So looks like their clock is up. If we're going on consensus, I'm going to go Keon Coleman as well. Utopia's got Keon Coleman. I think we're going to probably lock in Keon Coleman here for the Buffalo Bills, unless anyone's got any objections. It is Keon Coleman to the Buffalo Bills here at number 13. That will put the Denver Broncos on the clock now. And Denver is a fun team just because you're looking at a Russell Wilson-led team, so quarterback's not really a need. I don't know too much about Denver, so I can't really speak to it. I do know that they have some great pieces on defense in Surtain on that back end. I think maybe you talk about edge rusher here.
Yeah, they did trade away Bradley Chubb last year. I don't know who they've got now. They got the guy from Arizona, I think. Mm-hmm. Zach, what's his name? I can't remember.
Yeah,
we'll look at it.
Right. I think if you're looking at them, you're either looking at defense or you're looking best player available. And right now, for me, looking at the board, it kind of lines up that way between Chop Robinson and Latu being probably the two best available here.
Yeah, and it is Zach Allen and Jonathan Harris are their ends. So that's definitely a room you could look to add someone in.
Yeah. And I mean, you wanted to get a guy like Latu who's played West Coast football, so he knows something about it, especially playing in those LA areas. And also you have two ends there that they're not going to light the world on fire. I mean, we had to search for their name to figure out who they were. So, but you also have defensive ends there that can bring Latu along slowly, or you have a backup in case he goes down, because I will sit here and pound the table for him to be a top 5 prospect. I had him going off the board as high as number 4, but the medicals scare the living daylights out of me. I mean, we're 2 years removed from him being completely out of football.
Yeah, that is the big issue with him. But like you said, if he doesn't have those medical issues, he is a top 5 player in this draft, arguably, and in most drafts. This is a pretty stacked one at the top because you've got the quarterbacks, you've got Harrison, you've got Bowers, you got Fashanu. It's crazy up there. But I think at this point for Denver, this is a steal if they're able to land Latu.
Absolutely. So we've got 2 for Latu. So I think we're going to go ahead, if the clock's still running, if we're going to run the clock out, unless Trav wants to make the selection, I think we're probably leaning Latu here. And looks like clock is up. So we are going to go with Latu going to Denver. So that puts Seattle on the clock at 15. It's tough looking at needs for Seattle. I would say probably anywhere on all 3 levels of the defense: linebacker, safety, corner. I just don't know. You could also have the conversation about quarterback. I think you could have the conversation of Jaden Daniels here. You could have the conversation of Michael Penix from nearby Washington. Fits right in Seattle. I don't know if quarterback would be the move.
If it was me, I would be running up to the podium for Michael Penix. And it might not be the best pick at the end of the day, but he's a player I've really liked in this draft. It's a local team. You've got Geno Smith there who he could start for another year or two, maybe past that, but you're probably looking for the future at some point. And look at the kind of offense Penix is coming into as well. It's similar to his college offense in the sense that you have a loaded wide receiver room. You've got plenty of options there, and they have a really good running back room. So you get Michael Penix in there. I think you've got your guy for the future. But then you get the question of if he sits for a year or two, he's going to be an older player at that point, like 26, I think, 27. But
20.
Quarterbacks last so long. Like, I'd take a guy I think was going to be great for 15 years over someone I didn't like as much for 20.
Right. And it looks like the pick is in. Seattle is going with Jaden Daniels, quarterback, LSU here. I think, like we talked about, quarterback is the right move. And just like you just alluded to, it's age. I don't see Jaden or Penix potentially beating out Geno Smith. I think Pete Carroll would bring him along slowly. And, look at Jaden Daniels in that offense with that running back room. Imagine the amount of run RPOs they could run, especially with Jackson Nigba, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. You now have a major offensive weapon there going Jaden Daniels here. So with that, the LA Rams now on the clock here at pick 16. I'm going to continue to struggle with the Rams, obviously, because anywhere in the offensive line could help, but I could be convinced of Fuaga here. Edge is probably where we're going to go. I could see Chop Robinson or Jared Verse here. So I would go probably Jared Verse out of Florida State. So I don't know if it looks like it's consensus for the Rams. So I'm going to say Jared Verse, unless you guys have any other options, selections we want to discuss, but I'm thinking Verse for the Rams here.
I've seen Jared Verse comped a little to Brian Burns, and you think about who they tried to trade for just last offseason, and now you do it for first. Obviously you don't get the guy who's proven because he's a rookie, but that'd be a pretty good selection for them.
Right. And I mean, you're talking about a Florida State connection. Brian Burns from Florida State, Jared Verse from Florida State. So I think Burns is probably a better pass rusher and Verse is probably a better run defender. I'm just not a fan of Burns when it comes to setting the edge on the run, but he's getting there. He's severely improved, but I think Jared Verse is probably where we're going to go unless Utopia or anyone else or Colton have any objections for Jared Verse.
I got one for next for leave for Seattle. Go for honestly, I
think from what I gathered from the chat, it looks like he went with Jaden Daniels.
All right.
And it looks like Colton is saying Verse. I'm going Jared Verse for the Rams. If you're in for Jared Verse, I think Verse is the pick on the Rams.
All right. So Jaden Daniels, the pick at 15.
Yep.
Yeah, the simulator's being a little bit. I'm a little bit more time.
No worries. We can. I've got a simulator up on my end that I'm pulling it up on. So we'll go ahead and we'll lock the Rams in here with Jared Verse at 16. That puts Cincinnati on the clock at 17. And as I live and breathe, a quick pick looks like for Cincinnati. I think we're going Talise Fuaga, the offensive tackle out of Oregon State. I think that's a huge pickup for Joe Burrow in that offense.
Yeah, that's a layup for that team.
Absolutely. So Arizona is now on the clock here. So their first pick, they went with Olufoshinu out of Penn State at tackle. I think at this point you have to flip the side of the ball and you have to go with defense. I think your conversation centers around: do you want a pass rusher or do you want to stop the pass? I would go pass rusher. I'd say Chop Robinson here.
Yeah, I don't know where their need lies more, whether it's at corner or pass rusher, or if it's just both. I think it's probably both. But I've heard a lot about corner with Arizona most years, and you've got everyone on the board except for McKinstry.
Yeah, McKinstry is the only one off the board at this point, but other than that, every corner safety is open to you.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. Like this would be a prime trade back spot, I would think. And they're a team that did it last year, and they're benefiting from it with this pick. So,
and I think when you talk about who's up next, the Falcons at 19, you could talk about quarterback. That could be a quarterback conversation starter. So does a team want to leap the Falcons to try to get a Michael Penix type of player? Do you see a team, a Minnesota potentially moving up, or someone outside the first round coming back into the first round?
Yeah, I mean, if Minnesota got Michael Penix, I'd be buying my Michael Penix jersey 1 minute after that. I would love it, but
Right.
I don't know if they do. I think Kirk Cousins probably comes back there still.
Yeah.
I don't know where Penix really fits in of the teams left, because you start to get into the playoff contenders, and then even the teams that have already made their first round selections early on, and may look this kind of similar to Levis. They aren't trading up this far,
right?
So I don't know if maybe they would trade out with another team.
Right. And I mean, you could also look at a team that doesn't trade up for a quarterback. I don't know how far you're going to want to trade up for a non-quarterback player. But you have to think about teams that want to trade up to pass the Falcons. The Falcons' needs really for me are offense, especially at quarterback. But I think so. We also are hearing rumors that number 22 overall is up for sale. So that's Indy's pick, looking to move. I think Indy right now, with the way the board's falling, that's a prime trade back spot as well. But again, you've got to have somebody who's willing to come up for one of these quarterbacks.
Yeah, I don't know who's all trading up at this point. Like, I know for myself, like looking for the Jaguars, the guy I had my eyes on at this point, and there's still some you could consider, it was probably Jared Verse. And he went a little early because it's 10 picks before. How much do you want to give up? Do we even have the second because of the Ridley trade? But we're getting to a point where a lot of these players, I feel like, at the top of the board are kind of similar value. And so you're going to have a lot of teams probably trying to trade back that aren't willing to, or teams aren't willing to give them an offer that's worth it.
Right. So looks like for Arizona, if we're going consensus, I say they probably take corner with the amount of needs that they had. And I go Terry and Arnold here. I think probably is going to be the pick on that one. Looks like Utopia also said Terry and Arnold. Colton, I think, probably going to look Arnold here and go 3 for 3.
Yeah.
And it is Terry and Arnold, the cornerback out of Alabama, going to Arizona here. So Atlanta on the board on number 19 right now. So I think if you're Atlanta, the conversation has to start and end at quarterback. I think now the question becomes, do you go with Penix or do you like someone else like Bo Nix, who I do not think is a first-round talent. McCarthy, I don't think is a first-round talent. I think if it's quarterback, it has to be Penix or bust, but could be convinced of other selections. Edge is also probably a need for them, so I could be convinced to probably chop Robinson. And I would say it really depends on who's running the show. If Arthur Smith probably gets another year, he'll probably stick with Ritter or Heineke or one or the other. But if we're talking new coaching staff, I'd probably say Penix is probably the pick here.
Yeah, probably Penix or Bo Nix. I don't know what they're looking at, and this would be a team, if I was in charge of it, they wouldn't have the same head coach. So I don't know who you'd have, but I don't know if they make that move.
Right.
So I am backed up simulator. Terrell went at 19. Green Bay's on 20. But I mean,
I think so far the biggest thing, I think Cover 11 has absolutely destroyed this draft, getting Marvin Harrison and Bowers with pick 1 and pick 9. I think you look at Seattle getting Jaden Daniels at 15. That's a guy who could go top 10 for sure. I think, to get him there at 15, I think there's some teams that definitely get some tough breaks in terms of just how the board fell. I look at Tampa at 10, locking into Latham. I think probably the Bears have probably had the best draft hands down so far.
Yeah, the Bears do 3 play.
So,
yeah, no doubt about the Bears there. I think some other teams that made some pretty good picks. If I was the Giants, I would have moved up for Drake May, but Neighbors is really good at 6. I like Newton to the Raiders because you picked that right before Los Angeles as well. And I think that's a place they definitely could have gone. Yep. So you steal a guy from them. I think Denver getting Leatu Latu is a sneaky one. And worst case scenario, he can't play. And that's terrible. But if he plays, he's probably going to be worth more than the 14th selection. And verse to the Rams is a really good fit. Yep. And ends up being affordable for them, way more so than what Brian Burns would have been.
Right. Agreed. I think the one that bothers me the most is that Giants pick. Even though it is Neighbors, I would have liked to see the Giants go after Drake May. If you're going to hitch your wagon you're either going to hitch your wagon to Dable or you're going to hitch it to Daniel Jones. And I think in this scenario, not trading for May and going after Neighbors, you're now hitching your wagon to Daniel Jones. I just don't know if you'd want to hitch that wagon. I don't think he is. He's a good quarterback. Do not get me wrong, but I don't think he's a guy that's going to get you to that next level.
Yeah, I would never extended him last year, but this is the boat they're in now. And if you're not going to get the quarterback, you got to go get the guys around him and make sure even if he doesn't work out, you have a plan for your next guy.
Yeah, so looks like Colton's thinking either Bo Nix, Chop, or Trice. I would say probably you go Chop or Trice. At that point, it is probably a coin flip. I don't know if I go Bo Nix here, even though they need a quarterback. I don't. It depends on who's running the show in Atlanta. And Utopia is saying McCarthy. If I had to pick one of these guys at quarterback, I would probably take Penix over Nix and McCarthy. It would probably be Penix, McCarthy, Nix in that order. So.
Yeah, same order for me, but Atlanta might be a good fit for Nix. It's the only reason I might have considered him there over a guy like Penix, but I think quarterback makes a lot of sense for them. Just hope they are able to develop him.
Right. Exactly. I think especially with the RPOs he did in Oregon and those quick single reads to Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts, I think if Nix goes first round, it has to be Atlanta. I think that's probably the best fit for him. So, but we're going to wait and see if Freak Falcon are going to go quarterback here. I'm going to probably assume the consensus is probably going to be quarterback. And since we've got 2 for Bo Nix, I will go ahead and hop on the Bo Nix bandwagon. Even though I don't like the pick, I think Bo Nix is probably going to be the selection here unless Falcon has any other objections to that.
Yeah, I wouldn't like it either, but I think it would be the pick.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, because Utopia's got McCarthy. Colton has Bo Nix. I have Penix. So it comes down to Brennan, who he thinks that they're going to go with. Nix does fit better. I like Penix just because I think Penix is probably the best of the three. I think Nix is a reach here. McCarthy, I could be talked into just because he has a leaner build, but it's just an extremely athletic arm. So,
It's like Penix.
yeah, it looks like Brennan is going to go with Penix. So
Nice.
I think we're going to go ahead and we are going to, if everybody's good with that, we're going to lock in Michael Penix here to Atlanta at pick number 19. That's good with everybody. We'll lock in Penix and we'll move on to pick 20. All right, so it looks like Michael Penix Jr. to Atlanta at pick number 19 is going to be the selection here. So we're going to go on to Green Bay at pick 20. And Brunelli Sports on the clock here at 20. Don't know too much about the Packer needs. From what I've seen in years past, I could be convinced of offensive line with how much Bakhtiari's been in and out. You look at offensive line, whether it's tackle, whether it's guard, whether it's center. You got guys like Amarius Mims here, Sumadia, Morgan, Paul, all guys I have kind of late first, mid two, kind of that between 30 and 50 range. So I don't know if they really line up with edge or corner here.
Barton's hiding there too.
I did see Barton there. I think if you're going to go with a guard, I think it's probably going to be Barton. I like Fotanu out of Washington. I like him, especially. I think he played tackle, but I think he projects better at guard at next level, especially at 6'4", 310 pounds. So I think that's where we would probably want to go in terms of the next selection for Green Bay. But Green Bay on the clock here. I think the big thing now as we start to get into these later selections is which players could you be justified for trading up for? And I don't know if there's a player right now that you could really be justified in trading up for, because I don't think Bo Nix is that guy. McCarthy maybe, but I would see him probably going start of the second.
I think maybe one team I could consider at this point trading up, although I think they'd have some other options if they stay put. Maybe Kansas City. If they want to go get a guy like Emeka Egbuka, he might fall off the board here in the next 5 picks or so. If a team wants Chop Robinson or Trice, I'd probably be higher on Robinson, but those would be some guys I could potentially see at this point.
Right. And it looks like consensus pick is where we're going to head next. I'm saying I'm with you. I'm going to probably say at this point guard's probably a bigger need than tackle, and I could see Barton, guard from Duke here. I have a late 1, early 2, so I had him more kind of in the end of the first round. Teams like Baltimore, Miami, Philly, Carolina, but I think with the way the board's fallen, I think that's probably where Green Bay is going to want to go.
Yeah, I think it's an easy pick for them. You play him somewhere on the offensive line, he's going to play good there.
Yeah. And it looks like Utopia is thinking Cooper Beebe at guard. Go
I
ahead.
don't know if anybody else is still here. Great. And sick.
I think we're still here. We got you.
Still work. I mean, I'm not even trying after the first, to be honest. I will try to get through the rounds. I will. All right.
Yeah.
Sounds like Bart is the majority vote and the majority am officials are now.
Right. Vikings on the clock. I think Brennan said it in the chat best. Obviously, Barton played all 5 O-line positions at Duke. So Barton here is a player, you take him and you figure out where you want to seat him. If Bakhtiari leaves, you put him at left tackle. If he stays, you can put him guard, center, right tackle even. So Minnesota on the clock here at 21. I think you have the conversation about quarterback. I don't know if you take one. I think you have that conversation with McCarthy and Nix here. I would say probably somewhere.
Penix to it. I would rather play Russian take your son. I would rather play Black.
Right, and I agree. I think you take, if you're going to take a quarterback and you're going to lock into one, take McCarthy here. I had a round 3 grade on Bo Nix just because of his inability to command an NFL offense, his inability to command a college level offense, let alone an NFL offense. You're looking at least sitting him the first year to hopefully get anything out of him at quarterback. So, but I mean, I could be convinced if you're going to go quarterback, it's got to be McCarthy. Guy like Cooper DeJean is still here at corner, and you could put him at corner or safety. I think another back piece for that Minnesota defense. And you could also chop Robinson at edge as well.
Yeah, one of those guys needs to go soon. I feel like this is pretty far from the fall, especially DeJean. I think he's a teens kind of guy in this draft.
Right. And I saw him going as high as, 12 to the Chargers. So
yeah, he was one of the guys I mentioned too for that pick. He's someone they could absolutely use. And I don't think it's going to be something like where everyone's going to see him as a safety and then he has to fall into the second round. Like, he plays corner. He can do really good there. He can do really good at any of those positions. So you got to value him as such.
Right. So, but yeah, I think if Minnesota wants to have that conversation with quarterback, it's got to be McCarthy. And I would say no here. And I would say probably DeJean at corner / safety probably needs to be their selection.
Yeah, I could see him at corner for them because they've got Bynum's played pretty well this year. They still got Lewis Seen. I know he hasn't worked out as well, but you still got him. Harrison Smith is there. Until he retires, you don't really have to replace him. And then corner, you got Booth and Byron Murphy. So you got a spot for your slot guy, or one of those guys kicks in. Maybe Byron would be a guy you'd kick in.
Right. And that's what I think. I think it's the best defensive back player. Carson, no worries. It was kind of we were still going to do one for those available. And surprisingly, this one has been probably one of the more exciting drafts, especially with Chicago walking away with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Bowers at picks 1 and 9 respectively. So So I've got DeJean. Brennan's got DeJean. And we are going to lock it in with DeJean. All right, so Cooper DeJean locked in here to Minnesota at 21.
Locked it in.
All right, so it looks like Indy is on the clock here at 22.
Okay. Where's Pittsburgh picking at on here?
Pittsburgh's 23, so
23. Okay.
yeah, Carson's on deck.
Yep. So I don't finish board up, but you know, apparently when the chat room went up. Nate Wiggins to Colton. Selected Nate Wiggins. That is a fix. So the Steelers are now up.
Wow, that's a great selection for Indy. I know Hunter was looking at potentially trading out of that pick, but I think standing pat and taking Nate Wiggins there, I think is probably the best for them, especially just considering how the board is available. Looking at Pittsburgh here at number 23, Carson's looking top 5 available. I would say probably Chop Robinson at edge. Pittsburgh's needs probably along the offensive line.
Yeah, have they been better this year on the offensive line? Because I mean, they got Broderick Jones. I know it hasn't been great, but
right.
Sure
From a Browns fan perspective, they've been a lot better along the offensive line. I would still be remiss if I say that they don't take an offensive lineman here. I would say probably like Brennan's talked about, Morgan, the offensive tackle from Arizona here. I would say if you're going to look at offensive line, Morgan, Patrick Paul, I could even see a guy like even Kingsley Sumadia from BYU here for them as well.
Yeah, I'm not high on the BYU guy, but if Mims was in this, I think he'd be the guy to go after. Another person, along with Jordan Morgan, might be Patrick Paul. I definitely like his performance this year. The only thing, I don't know what exactly Pittsburgh looks for in their offensive linemen. If they want more agile guys, they want better pass protectors, like just beefier guys.
Right.
I believe Broderick was I don't know what his size was.
Yeah.
But
looks like Carson's locking in his pick. He's going to go with Kalen King, the cornerback from Penn State University here.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that pick as well. So that is going to put Houston on the clock here at number 24. So Houston on the clock. I would say you already got your guy at edge in Will Anderson Jr. Do you want to go after another guy on the other side and Chop Robinson? Do you look for a wide receiver, especially with the news of wide receiver 1, Tank Dell, for them being out with that injury? Probably will be ready day 1 next year, but do you potentially look for a second guy, or do you go along the defense?
I think they could be a team that looks at, say, Emeka Egbuka. I was just trying to look at some of the snap counts for their guys. They've got Dell, they've got Collins, and then Noah Brown right now, and then
Right.
Robert Woods is there too. But their guys are mainly outside guys.
Oregon. So if we're nominating receivers, I'm nominating Troy Franklin if the Texans don't pick on time. If they do, they can have whoever they want.
Right. And
Yeah,
that's
break
what
my
I am
heart.
thinking. I like Troy Franklin. I do. I have a first-round grade on him.
I'm a first on Franklin as well.
Yeah.
So and he's my wide receiver 4 behind Coleman, Neighbors, and behind Harrison Jr., Neighbors, and Coleman. He's probably my wide receiver 4 at the moment.
So it looks like, according to Brennan, it's going to be a consensus pick. So we're going to lock in Troy Franklin, wide receiver from Oregon, to the Houston Texans here. And now it
Sounds like a plan.
They always
Kansas
take the
City.
guys I want every single draft, man.
Texas get Troy Franklin of Oregon.
I was waiting for that pick, man.
Right.
And the Chiefs are up at 25.
I would say whoever the Chiefs don't select it, or whoever the Texans didn't select at wide receiver, the Chiefs take here. I like Ibuka here. At
I like Ibuka here too.
Yeah.
I like. There's one receiver I like just as much, but it's not an issue. I like Xavier Worthy. I like Ibuka. We'll go with Ibuka here if the Chiefs don't pick on time.
Right.
I'm cool with
right,
that.
and I'm fine with Worthy as well because he's the other one that I have a first round. I think the Chiefs. This is probably the dream
I've
scenario
got
for
firsts on
them.
both Ibuka and Worthy. I've got firsts on both of them, so I'm good either way.
Right. I think this is, if this is Kansas City, this is their dream scenario, and Ibuka and Worthy are both still here. I don't see really any other need for them across the board. Maybe tackle if we wanted to talk about that. But I think it's got to be wide receiver. I think you have to say, all right, we have to get Patrick Mahomes some help. As much as I love Rashee Rice, I don't think he's a number one guy at the next level.
I think he could be a number 2 guy. He's shown a lot of promise this year, but I don't think he's a number 1 guy. I'm with you on that.
Right. So let's see here.
I'll grab my phone. It's in the office. With the MLS Cup on, I'm moving from the office into the living room.
No worries. It looks like Eli is saying Brian Thomas Jr. for the Chiefs.
Is that who's picking for the Chiefs?
That's what I am trying to confirm.
He would have caught that MVS catch if he was there.
That's true. Let's see here.
All right.
Because I don't have the screenshot up. Brandon, if you can confirm Eli is selecting for the Chiefs, we can lock in Brian Thomas Jr. Which I have an early second round grade on Brian Thomas Jr. I think I like Ibuka and Worthy just a little more, but it's not a bad pick if they go Brian Thomas Jr. here either.
Yeah, I'm looking at Banks closed. Is that for the Eagles?
Let's see.
So let's see. I'm looking at the Chiefs thing that Hunter sent me.
Looks like
it is Banks. Banks is the one who's picking.
Yep, and Banks close says Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. So
Brian Thomas is officially the pick. Jacksonville is now on the clock.
All right.
This is your time to shine. So
the last 2 picks were about as much of a disaster as I could have ever hoped for, but that's all right. We'll figure something out here.
So looking at Jacksonville, what are your guys' big needs across the board?
Receivers very high on that list. You look at the guys they have right now, there's not a lot of people they've developed. You have Parker Washington probably being the only guy now, and he just played his first full game on Mondays. So I would have loved to get someone. I wouldn't have picked Brian Thomas necessarily here. I would have picked Troy Franklin, but bad luck. They came off the board right before. I think you could also add in their edge rusher. I'd like someone who plays more on the defensive line than dropping back in the coverage. Maybe you could ask Chop Robinson to do that. You can look for a safety. I think Rayshawn Jenkins is a player they could look to replace at some point. Tyler Newman would be a fantastic player for that. And you could have looked at offensive line, but I think Barden was the only guy that made sense in the first round because you get someone who's versatile and he can play anywhere on the interior where they need it.
Right. I mean, if I'm sitting in your shoes, I think the conversation is Ibuka versus Kitchens, the safety from Miami. I think he's a very talented safety. I would definitely have that conversation. I would probably lean more towards Ibuka. Is where I
like
go.
him. The issue for me is with Ibuka. You're looking at him playing mostly in the slot. I know he can play outside, but it's not necessarily ideal. And so it's like you've got Christian Kirk there already, and you've got Parker Washington now as your backup. And so you're kind of overcrowding that part of the room where if Calvin Ridley goes down, if Zay Jones goes down, then you're kind of screwed on the outside, or you're playing someone who's not as natural out there. For me, this is probably Newbin or it's Chop Robinson. And I think with just the nature of where players tend to go, what's valued, um, and what would help out the team more, I think it has to be Chop Robinson at this point.
Especially if Josh Allen leaves in free agency. If Josh Allen leaves in free agency, Chop Robinson's the one player left on the board that could come in and potentially replace him. And if not, you're getting him as a really good backup. If Allen does get extended, you're getting him as a situational edge who could come in and challenge. And if he does well, maybe he takes that other edge spot from Walker down the road. Who knows? But Chop's a good pick here.
I think they'd find a way to get them all on the field, personally. I think Walker's going to be a full-time starter going forward. He's gotten consistently better as a player and been pretty valuable to them this year. But you keep in mind, too, like they're going to lose Chase on this year. He has not been a good edge 3, but they do need to replace that. Dwan Smoot has not been exactly the same coming back from injury. So you could find a way to get all these guys on the field. And I do think Josh Allen will be back. Even with that considered, I think this is the best player on the board and someone I would go after. It's just I like Newman more as a safety than I like Chop Robinson as an edge, but edge is a lot more important to what the needs are. And
so Chop Robinson's the pick then. Okay.
Yep, that's correct.
Yep.
Dallas at 27 is up.
So Dallas, I can't really speak to too much their needs.
Not LJ.
So I see I got offered a trade right after I made that selection.
64 and a 2025 one.
Yeah, see, okay, I'll say this. If that was ever offered in real life, I would have accepted that. I don't see how it would have been. I think the value is too much that's given up. I did not see it in time. If this was a real life trade, I would accept it. Usually I don't trade for like future picks in these unless it feels really realistic. And that's a lot to give up. So it's all right.
So Dallas on the clock here at 27. I think probably you'd look offensive line here for Dallas. Maybe defensive tackle.
They did take Mozzie Smith last year. I'm leaning Jeremiah Trotter Jr. since Leighton Vander Esch is a UFA. I'm not opposed to Tyleek Williams or Marius Mims, but my top choice for Dallas would be Trotter Jr. at this point.
Right, and I would say probably Trotter Jr. because then you're looking at Mozzie Smith at the first level, Trotter Jr. and Parsons at the second level, and then you're looking on the third level.
Leighton Vander Esch is a free agent after this year. That's why I'm saying Trotter Jr. makes a lot of sense for Dallas here.
Yeah, I would say if I'm Dallas, Trotter Jr. makes sense, but I would start taking phone calls on one of those quarterbacks just to try to get somebody moving up for a first round option, a 5th-year option for one of the quarterbacks, whether it's McCarthy or it's Nix. Maybe a team like Washington who took Dallas Turner at 4. Maybe they try to move up here.
What about Carolina? Need a receiver. You got Mecca Igbuga on the board here. I know it's not quarterback, but
Panthers can probably wait for their receiver at 33. I mean, numbers game says they're going to get. I mean, there's 5 first-round picks left. There's a 60% chance you'll get either Emeka Egbuka, Xavier Worthy, or Adonai Mitchell. And then there's other round 2 receivers like Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky that could be available depending on how the rest of this draft goes as well.
Yeah, I think it depends on how you look at it. I have kind of a gap between Igbuga and the guys below. Maybe not as much to look at. I don't know what the Panthers would look at necessarily in receiver, but I think Igbuga would have been a steal.
I think Igbuga would probably be the pick if I'm the Panthers. I just don't know if you're willing to give up the draft capital to get back into the first round to get him, because teams like Dallas, and they're going to look at it and say they're going to want a guy, so I'm going to try to get as much as I can. I don't know if Carolina has the capital to move up, let alone do they want to give that capital up?
Carolina has picks 33, 65, and 97, according to Simulator.
Yeah, I don't. And if I'm going to look at like a draft value chart, I would say the conversation has to start with those first two and 33.
So actually, there was a trade from 33 to 27 a couple of years ago. Jacksonville did it. It was for Devin Lloyd. They gave up first pick on day 3. I think it ended up being 106. That's probably what 97 is in this scenario, I'm assuming. Comp picks probably aren't included.
The comp picks are excluded in this mock.
Yeah, so that 97 would be the exact same. Jacksonville gave 97, and they gave up a 6th rounder, I believe.
Yeah.
So that might be one to look at.
6th.
Right.
How long should we wait until we make Trotter the pick for Dallas? You said 4:15. It's 4:15 when we tagged him.
Yeah, say 4:15 is when we tagged him. I would say at this point, I say we have to make Trotter the pick unless.
All right, I already locked it in. I'm sorry. Trotter is the pick.
Oh, he just posted Mims on it.
Fudge.
Well.
Fudge. But that's Jay. That's not.
Oh yeah, Jay is the one picking for Dallas.
I accidentally pushed Trotter. Okay, I'll make Mims the pick, but I got to reset the simulator.
That's fine. We can do that. We can.
I'll compromise. We'll make Mims the pick, but I got to reset the simulator.
Let's see here.
Okay.
All right, so reposting that.
Cardinals take Shanu, Dallas Turner. Let the Lions know they're on the clock in the group text that I'm going to try to update the. It's the only way to get the Saints to trade with the Bears in the simulator is to give up 9, 45, 137, and then a second and third in 2025 for 5. The Saints keep their first, and then the Saints move up for Drake May. That's literally the only way to make that work. Malik Neighbors to the Giants. The Jets took at number 7. The Jets took Joe Alt. I think Kool-Aid went number 8. Kool-Aid went 8th. The Bears took Bowers at 9. I remember us raving about that draft. Latham to the Jerzon Newton went to the Raiders. Romo Dunes went to the Chargers. Keon Coleman went to the Bills. Broncos took
They took Latu.
That's right. And then I think Jay Daniels went 15.
Seattle.
Yep. And then Fuaga went to the Rams.
Verse
went to the Rams.
Verse went to the Rams. Okay. And that means Fuaga went to the Bengals, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now I'm starting to catch up. Cardinals at 18 was Terry and Arnold, I believe.
Yes.
I believe I made that pick for the Cardinals because they ran low on time. Penix went to Atlanta. And then Penix went to Atlanta, and I think the Vikings took McCarthy. So
yeah.
Who's the Packers take at 20?
They took Graham Barton out of Duke.
All right. That makes sense. So Graham Barton went 20. McCarthy's a Viking. Colts ended up with
Wiggins out of Clemson.
Clemson corner. Steelers took the Caleb King Penn State corner. The Chiefs I forgot that Tyron Smith is a free agent at left tackle. That's why the Cowboys took Mims. But the Texans ended up with Franklin, I believe, and then the Chiefs took
Chiefs took Word.
They took Brian Thomas.
Oh, they took Brian Thomas. That was it.
Yeah. And then the Jaguars took Chop Robinson, and the Cowboys Mims. Okay, we're all caught up.
All right. So looks like it's going to be consensus for Detroit. Whoever we want to go consensus on Detroit.
Oh, I think he put in for Fatanu. Is Alec? Yeah, he put in Fatanu.
Oh, yeah. Troy Fatanu from Washington.
That's a nice pick. Jonah Jackson's a UFA. That's not a bad pick for the Lions. He bolstered reload on the offensive line. That's not a bad value pick. Niners are up. So if the Niners owner doesn't pick on time, I'm cool. I'd be cool with letting Colton make the pick, but Colton's not here. So what do the Niners want to do at 29?
Oof.
The Eagles sound like they want to trade up, but I'm not sure they want to do a deal with the devil.
Right. I don't know
Are
if
you
they
implying that John Lynch is Satan?
That's what they'd say, at least.
Philly wants to move up. Why is it not?
Who wants my upcoming second looking to trade down? Breaking fantasy. So, you know, Niners, there's a lot of options here for the Niners. I'm thinking they go best corner on their board. They could also take a receiver, though. I mean, I'd be down with Egbuka or the best corner on their board. Best corner on their board. Honestly.
I would say probably best corner available for them. Maybe Denzel Burke there. I think out of Ohio State, I would think probably him, or if you're gonna look at one, I like Abrams Drain out of Missouri. Even though he is on the smaller side of things.
My favorite zone cover corner is Quinion Mitchell. My favorite press cover corner is Kyrie Jackson, but those guys are going to be available later.
Right. I love Mitchell's tape. I think he'll test well, and I think he could eventually launch into the first round. I have mid-second on him, but I think Mitchell would make a great pick here.
Honestly, I think Mitchell's better than Sean Bunting Murphy, the last MAC player to go in the top 40. I have zero issue with Quinion Mitchell here at 29. I don't think he'll be the pick in real life, but if that's Josh Newton's there, Denzel Burke is there.
I could see Abrams Drain sneak into the first round. I don't know if it's with San Francisco, but you saw it with Emmanuel Forbes.
20. I don't like Cooper DeJean as much as a consensus, but he is the consensus best player, and he's only 20.
Right.
So with that youth, that longevity, the Niners might gamble on him here.
You said DeJean? He went to Minnesota.
Yeah.
No, McCarthy went.
McCarthy was in.
We did McCarthy.
Yeah, we did McCarthy there.
Okay.
On the board.
Okay.
If you want to put DeJean here, I'm not opposed to that. Just so we get it out of the way, just for less confusion. Do you want to just agree to put DeJean here so we get that confusion out of the way?
I would be fine with DeJean here.
All right, Cooper DeJean to San Francisco. Let's make it official. How much?
All right, so we're at.
DeJean, how long have the Niners been on the clock?
I would say I think they posted that we are. Let me make sure. 4:19. Brennan said that we were on the clock for the Niners. So just making sure.
It's 4:25.
Yeah, I would say we lock in here.
Yeah. Only reason I'm saying we lock in Cooper DeJean is to avoid the confusion.
To avoid the confusion of McCarthy versus DeJean. I think in real time we'd probably go Mitchell, like Brennan.
I have Mitchell rated ahead.
It's
rated ahead, but I think in terms of realistic, I do like Mitchell better personally.
Right.
But to avoid the confusion, if unless you think we should go with Mitchell here.
I mean, you could do both. I don't think McCarthy would have been the original pick for Minnesota. I think they would have avoided corner, and I think McCarthy would still be here.
The reason I went with McCarthy is because the Vikings have 3 corners on rookie deals. Them to take a corner.
Right.
They've got Blackman. They've got guys. If they want a corner in round 2, they could go that route, but they don't have a quarterback. Right. It just made more sense, and I was kind of acted on impulse there.
No, that's fine. I understand the conversation. I don't know if I take a quarterback. I don't know if I take McCarthy or Nix at 21.
All right, we'll go with DeJean for San Francisco to avoid confusion.
Yeah, so we'll be reset here with Baltimore.
Cooper DeJean. Baltimore is up.
Yep. Ravens owners out of here. It is going to be consensus for
All right.
Baltimore.
Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is the best player on the board, but is he better than Trenton Simpson, his teammate? Because the Ravens did take Trenton Simpson in the 3rd round. How much confidence do you have in Trenton Simpson starting after Pat Roquan Smith next year with Queen set to be UFA?
So I would not take Trotter here. I would take Ibuka. I would say you're going to give Lamar Jackson your number 1 option. Take Ibuka here, and
I agree. I'm in agreement with you.
It looks like is William the pick for?
William is Ravens. I was praying San Fran didn't take him.
Yeah, so it looks like William is taking Quinion Mitchell.
I guess his prayers got heard.
Yeah. Ravens owner is here. It is Quinion Mitchell
Mitchell is a Raven. The Toledo corner is a Raven.
That is.
I like it.
I like it. I do.
You know, we could give the Dolphins Ibuka here as a joke. They have too many weapons.
Yeah.
Another one.
You know, you say that, and that's when Mike McDaniel shows up and says, yeah, give me Ibuka. And we say that, but I would not be shocked. So
do they have a need for one of the Miami players, like a Leonard Taylor or Cameron Kitchens at this point?
Cameron Kitchens is available.
I say they have a need for both the best defensive player. I mean, they don't need offense unless we're looking tackle or guard, and I don't think tackle or guard should be the pick here. I would go Kitchens. I would say Kitchens at safety.
Yeah,
Jones is a UFA. Dolphins 2020 3rd round pick is a UFA, and Javon Holland has 1 year left on his rookie deal.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the Kitchens pick to the Dolphins. I mean, if that's a nice value pick here.
Yeah. Looks like Backseat GM is the one. He's on the clock. He's looking for a trade partner for someone to try to make a move here. I just don't know who would be willing to trade up unless you have somebody that's coming up for Bo Nix.
Yeah, there has not been a whole lot of trade up scenarios this draft. No one really wants to move up.
Yeah,
it's a top heavy QB draft. It's a deep tackle class. It's a deep receiver class. And there's corners you can get in day 2 or day 3. That's why everybody's playing chess and nobody's moving up right now.
Right. I think once we'll start to see some actual move ups in this draft. I just don't think there's a quarterback. I wouldn't move up for Bo Nix when I could get him here. Looks like Hunter trying to make a move, send a 54 and a 25-second trying to move up here.
Which team's that?
That is Hunter. Hunter was Indianapolis.
See if the simulator accepts. Nah, no reason for a future second here. Thanks, though.
Yeah, it looks like Indy is the one trying to move up.
Maybe we'll see the Colts and Eagles make a trade. They've made plenty of those over the years. Colts, Eagles poaching resources from each other in terms of coaches.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. I do love that Indy is trying to be aggressive, trying to get up the board. All right. Looks like his 2 minutes is up, so we're going to see what his final pick is. And
Leonard Taylor the third. He's 32 on the simulator, so Leonard Taylor the third is the official pick, and the Eagles are now up. I know Howie Roseman would be doing jumping jacks or getting all giddy if Jeremiah Trotter Jr. were there at 32 in real life, but we'll see who the Eagles GM picks here.
Yep. Looks like it is Mr. Brennan is on the clock here with the Eagles legacy pick. It's Jeremiah Trotter Jr. out of Clemson. Looks like that's who he's going to go with. I think if it is Trotter, I think you have to race the card to the podium.
Yeah, Trotter. I've already inked Trotter Jr. as the pick. I wasn't sure if did I jump the gun there. I wasn't trying to jump the gun there.
No, he posted it, so I'm gonna assume that he is good with it. I still think it's a need. I think it's the best player available. I think it checks every box that Philly wants in a linebacker. So, but that is the end of the first round.
Carolina's got a simple choice here.
Yeah, I think Carolina has to take Ibuka and just move on with it.
Carolina, if you do not take Egbuka, I might actually consider taking Egbuka here in round 2 with the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots just have so many needs they got to address.
Mhm.
There's tackle. We need tackle. We need a receiver.
Need everything. So that is the end of round 1. So Carolina on the clock here at 2.
Hunter with the amazing job with the board. I'd post the board, but it would lead to Restream disconnecting. And I just think Hunter's doing an amazing job posting the board for everybody in the group.
Right. I think it's great because then we can also. I love the trade ability to show the trades there. I think if we're looking back on the entirety of round 1, I would say Chicago probably had the best round 1 of any team.
Chicago got 2 of my top 3 players. I think there are 3 players you can argue have max potential grades down the road, like 99 grades on Madden. I think there's 3: Caleb, Willie, Harrison Jr., and Bowers. And there's a better chance that Harrison Jr. and Bowers reach that ceiling than Caleb. Even though the Patriots needed a quarterback, there's a much better chance those 2 reach that ceiling than Caleb.
Absolutely.
Caleb's the only one who's got a question on him at this point, and the questions are kind of debatable too. I mean,
I think they're a non-issue.
Generational.
But, we'll see what happens. I think those questions with Caleb are a non-issue, but I could end up being wrong.
Right. I would say if you're going to take one over the other, if you're going to take Caleb or Drake May, I think you take Caleb. I think he's a more polished prospect than Drake May. You can't go wrong with either. I think that Caleb is probably the better overall prospect, although I like Drake May's deep ball a little bit better. But you couldn't go wrong. It's a 1A, 1B scenario for me.
Yeah, and the Patriots, they do need a left tackle. They do need a receiver. So, we'll see what happens because there's a lot of good first-round value receivers. There's a lot of good tackles available as well.
Mm-hmm. So, looks like Carolina.
Yeah, I don't see him.
Yeah, I don't see him here.
Luca will be the pick if they don't pick in time.
Yeah.
It's Michael Stamps is the person picking. There's no messages.
Yeah.
Carolina
is.
I say if we want to lock in Ibuka, we can.
Yeah, because I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brennan just tagged him at 4:34, so we can give him a couple of minutes here just to make sure he sees it. But I think if Carolina gets Ibuka here at the top of round 2, I think they're running the card to the podium. The only other person you could feasibly make the conversation for, and it'd be tough. I'm higher on this person than most. And it's Xavier Worthy out of Texas, but I think Ibuka is just slightly better.
Yeah, for me it'd be Leggett, but I do think that Ibuka is just straight up the better player. And I don't know what they really look for in receiver at this point because, well, who there is sticking around long term as a starter, we don't know.
Right.
Oh, looks like he said something.
Yeah. Looks like he is in here, so we'll give him a minute to catch up. So I'm sure he wants to make that pick. And Egbuka is begging to be a Panther. I would say Egbuka's probably already bought a Carolina jersey and bought a ticket.
Probably. Hopefully he's not sorely disappointed.
McKinstry.
He might have died.
Yeah. And that may be the case. I'm gonna give him a chance to make sure that it's Egbuka. But and we're gonna go neighbors. I'm just resetting my board here.
Yeah, because there's a few players I'm looking at for 34 with my team, the Patriots. I haven't made a decision yet, but I'm looking at.
I think Philadelphia just said they're willing to move up and give up 64.
Right.
If that's both seconds, that's a shoe-in kind of trade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe was Carolina made a decision yet?
I don't see
No.
them having made one, so I'm thinking it's Ibuka, unless unless he wants
I
to
got the
say.
Patriots at 34, guys.
Sec, I'm just getting my board caught back up here.
All right. So we're locking in Egbuka.
I think that's going to be the consistent. I think that's going to be the consensus is we're going to lock in Egbuka. Kingstree Bowers.
All right, so Egbuka is the pick for Carolina. That's official. I'm looking at Xavier Worthy, probably. There's a lot of good talent available. It's like, there's a lot of good talent available.
Right.
It's just, I don't know if I'll be able to get a good tackle in round 3 That's really the only reason why I haven't pulled the trigger on a receiver yet. If anybody wants to make me an offer, I'm willing to take offers before I finalize the selection. Because I'm probably going best receiver or tackle on my board. But I'm willing to hear out offers for the pick.
What do you think about Patrick Paul?
I do like Patrick Paul. I like Kingsley. I like Patrick Paul, and I like Jordan Morgan. I like all three of those guys. I clearly don't have a preference, but I feel like if I take a receiver here, I'm not guaranteed a tackle at. I feel like I'm not guaranteed a tackle at my next pick at 66 because I have 234 and 66.
Yeah,
I don't think I can get a good left tackle at 66.
well, you probably got Guyton, but he's a right tackle.
Yeah.
Javon Foster
I can
plays
take
left.
Iran Migaji, the Yale tackle, but that'd be a reach this early.
Yeah.
If I want a left tackle, I need to take either Morgan or Paul here and then hope a receiver falls to me at 66. That's probably the play. Because right now, Trent Brown's the Patriots' left tackle.
All right, so it looks like we're locking in Egbuka for Carolina.
Yeah, I'm deciding between the tackles. But yeah, Paul is probably going to be the pick. I mean, he's a very good run blocker, and he's got the athleticism and pass blocking, and he's got the size. I like Jordan Morgan. I like Patrick Paul. It just depends on which of those three is highest on your board. But 6'7", I don't think you can teach that frame. I'm going to go Patrick Paul.
Patrick Paul. I think that's a good pick. I would say that's probably best pick. I have early seconds on all of them. Morgan, Sumata, Paul, all for different reasons.
Yeah, and I have a blind side for Caleb Williams. With Trent Brown now set to be a UFA, I've got Caleb Williams and I've got my blind side. And Columbus has just scored the first goal of the 2023 MLS Cup. Don't worry, I've got the TV on mute for everybody who dislikes soccer. I've got the TV on mute. The Cardinals are now up.
All right, so
speaking of other sports, Shohei Ohtani signed a massive deal today.
$700 million
in the middle of this. Yeah,
yes. You have the $700 million man. Back in the 70s, we had the $6 million man joke. Shohei Ohtani's officially the $700 million man.
I would have loved for the Royals to go do that, but it probably costs more in their new stadium. So,
yep.
What do you do?
So the Cardinals are up. Who wants to pick for the Cardinals?
We had to pick for them.
We have to pick for the Cardinals.
Do they need edge, maybe?
I would say edge is probably their need. I know we talked about it in the first round when they went
Fanu and they got Arnold. They don't have a number one receiver. But we already gave them a corner. I feel like they do need multiple corners, but is there an edge on the board worth taking here? JT Tuimoloau out of Ohio State's the top edge on the board, but I think he fits a 43 defense more so than a 34 defense.
Right.
You got Trice.
Yeah, I would say Trice out of Washington is probably going to be the pick here. I think he fits better with what.
I think he's more of a 43 edge. I would go with, but I do think he's the Tuimoloau and Trice are both 43 edges. So that would be my only objection here. Best player on the board is Denzel Burke. But again, the Cardinals already took a corner in the first round. They do have some corners on rookie deals, even though I feel like that number 2 corner spot can be upgraded. You still have Garrett Williams. You still have Catrell Clark. It's not a massive need. How do you feel about Tyleik Williams? The Cardinals do lose multiple nose tackles to free agency. Tyleik Williams, 6'3", 330, would be an ideal scheme fit.
I think it tackled. I think if you're not going to go edge, you got to go somewhere along that defensive line. I think you've got your guy at corner.
You got Dante Stills, who's a player I interviewed at the Shrine game last year. He's shown a lot of promise at 34 right end. Leads the defensive line with 4.5 sacks, but he's playing off the bench too. So, I feel like he could get 6.5.
Yeah,
with
I
the
think
starter
if
role
I think
next year. But you don't have that nose tackle. Lakai Fo and the other LA to tackle the Cardinals. I mean, the Cardinals really don't have that nose tackle in the middle. I do like Tyleek Williams. I think he could play 5 technique, and he's got the size of a nose tackle, and he's rushed off the edge. He's been utilized as an edge rusher. So I'm going to go Tyleek.
as I say,
if you guys both have Trice to pick.
I'd probably go Trice even if he's not as great of a fit.
All right. Braylon Trice.
Yeah, I would say just for value.
Colton is on the clock, guys.
All right, Colton is on the clock.
Where did he go first round?
He went to the mall to pick up his, I think he went to the mall or something to pick up his girlfriend or something. I don't know.
Oh, I was just knowing his pick. He picked Dallas Turner.
He went Turner with his first selection.
Just go finish it off with JT if he wants, but
yeah,
I don't know if that happens.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll see. Keep it up, guys. 31 more picks until I can take a receiver. I think we're going to see a receiver run. But the more teams that pass on receivers, the better off the Patriots are going to be. And Columbus has scored again. So it is 2-0 Columbus in the 36th minute. What's going to happen first? A third Columbus goal or the Browns picking? Let's put some over/under bets here.
It's going to be Columbus scoring.
Columbus.
I agree. I think Columbus gets a third goal before the Browns make a pick.
Yep. Oh, trust me, I'm over here just chomping at the bit and watching every tackle and wide receiver run right off the board.
Yaboa there with a big goal. I think I said Darlington Nagbe would get the game-winning goal. He's already won 3 MLS Cups, one with Columbus, one with Atlanta, and one with Portland. He's never won a second cup, but he has a chance to win a second cup with Columbus here, and those odds look really good. It's raining in Columbus, too. Colton made a pick yet.
Asking about OTs, so just gave one.
Yeah, he's looking at tackles on the board.
Guyton's are there. Javon Foster is there.
Oh, Magaji.
Kirana Amagaji, the Yale tackle, is there. But it's looking like LAFC is going to be dethroned by Columbus the 2022 MLS Cup champion LAFC. They're down 2-0. I mean, the Union, I think last year it was like a 1-1 game, and then the LAFC won in penalty kicks. So this is not good for LAFC, but luckily there's 2 halves in soccer. But, we'll wait for Colton's pick here.
He picked Kingsley.
Kingsley Suimadia, who was once my OT3, is Colton's pick as he gets his left tackle. The Giants are up at 37. Best player on the board is Denzel Burke. Could also go. My number 1 running back is Blake Corum. Saquon Barkley is. I think Henderson's coming back. I'm not sure. I think Travion Henderson might be coming back, but PFN hasn't updated that yet. So we'll see what happens. What do you think of the Giants at 37 here?
We still got Bo Nix on the board.
Yeah,
he's got to go somewhere around this range. This might be a team.
This could be a Nix conversation.
I'm not going to nominate Bo Nix, but if both of you guys pick Nix, that'll be the selection. I'm going to go with BPA on the board, which is Denzel Burke. Giants do need a corner next to Deontay Banks.
I would say Burke here. I think Nix is in the conversation. I think the conversation is between one of those two, is Burke or Nix, and I think it has to be Burke. I just don't think that they pull the trigger.
I'd rather do that, but someone, I don't know who, but someone's going to have to select him at some point here. I don't see him falling past
Yeah.
Packers have 38. The Titans have 39. Maybe the Titans bring him in to compete with Levis. I'm
Oh,
kidding.
jeez. Yeah.
Yeah.
4-way competition.
Right.
4 quarterback system.
Malik Willis,
At the
Bo Nix. Okay, so
Yeah, Burke.
Burke's the pick then, unless we get how long have the Giants been on the clock?
I think they've been on for a minute.
Yeah, I'm about ready to make Burke the pick, but I'll wait until we're officially at 2 minutes. Okay, it's been 2 minutes. Denzel Burke's the pick. Packers are up. I mean, maybe Colton takes Bo Nix at 41. I mean, the Buccaneers passed on quarterback. I'm thinking the Buccaneers at 41, Raiders at 42. One of them is going to take Bo Nix. We could see Colton trade 40 for a Bo Nix needy team. I'm thinking that's possibility here. Because even though I got a third on Nix, the Bucs and Raiders both need quarterbacks. The Packers don't need a quarterback. What's available? They took Graham Barton out of Duke.
One sec. Just updating my board still. Kingsley. And Giants just went.
Yeah, Wikipedia reported that Cortland Sutton died today. KOA Colorado. Benjamin Albright reports this is totally false. Sutton currently on team plane and very much alive. But Wikipedia had the nerve to report that Cortland Sutton died.
Yep. Looks like Green Bay's up. Their time's up on the clock, so we can go consensus.
Yep.
We went Burke for the Giants, so we're looking at the Packers now.
What do the Packers need? I mean,
well, their first round selection was offensive line. I would say probably the best linebacker available if we're going to look at that. And I would say
best inside linebacker is Jalen Ford. If they want a 34 outside linebacker or an edge rusher, I feel like there really isn't a 34 outside linebacker that fits that need. Barrett Carter went back to Clemson, so I'm not going to pick Barrett Carter. Barrett Carter's probably going to be one of the best players still on the simulator.
Yeah. I'm fine with locking in Jalen Ford for the Packers. I think he's probably the best available linebacker.
Yeah, only second round linebacker on my board. We'll do that.
Yep. All right, so it looks like Titans are on the board, and it looks like their pick is already in. They are going to go with Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver out of Texas.
Adonai Mitchell. Okay.
Yeah.
Titans get Adonai Mitchell. I'm happy about that. Are we going to see
good pick.
Yeah, that was a great selection.
Ford or Wilson? Colton has narrowed it down to Ford or Wilson. Not sure who the Ford. I think that was for the Packers. I think, but Jalen Ford is gone. Jalen Ford is gone, so that leaves Peyton Wilson, I guess, as Colton's pick at 40.
That's what I'm thinking.
But I'm not going to pull the trigger yet. I want confirmation.
Colton, are you good with Peyton Wilson? Or do you want to go forward before we pull the trigger?
Ford is gone. Jalen Ford went Packers.
Yeah, Jalen Ford went Packers.
Yeah, I think he was talking about the pick before. He's looking right now.
Yeah. No, yeah, he's still on. He's still looking. So
this was the pick they got for Montez Sweat, correct?
I believe you are correct, and I would.
that would factor into my decision making a little bit here.
Yeah,
I know they already got Dallas Turner, but
yeah, so they went Dallas Turner. That's the only reason I'm not leaning edge.
what positions do they really need
I,
outside of that?
maybe a linebacker or a guard. I could see BB coming off here out of Kansas State.
He'd be a really
as an
good one.
interior lineman for them.
Yeah, I do like Cooper Beebe. That would be a great pick for the Commanders here.
Yeah, I would say that would be if I'm in Colton's shoes, I take BB and plug him in either guard spot and roll with it. But
still there. Yeah,
that'd be where I'd go. Is probably with JT. Just get both your guys.
Agreed.
Yeah, I would say that's the conversation is either you go JT or you go BB, whichever line you want to fortify.
Yeah.
The only reason I say BB now is because I feel like edge is deeper than offensive line this year. I feel like you can get another edge rusher late.
Cooper Beebe. Colton has selected Cooper Beebe. It's almost like he's listening to the live stream and applying our sage advice.
Right.
Buccaneers are up at 41. Is this where Bo Nix comes off the board? Or are the Buccaneers going to give Colton the opportunity to select Bo Nix, who he has a first-round grade on, by the way?
Yeah.
I have a feeling Colton will go Bo Nix at 42 for the Raiders.
I would say I think you have to have that conversation if you're Tampa Bay. They passed on the quarterbacks in round one. I feel like in real life, if they were going to take Bo Nix, they probably would have taken him round one. I think if he doesn't go here, he's going 42.
Yeah.
I
mean, if you don't re-sign Antoine Winfield Jr., you could go Cameron Kitchens here. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying the Buccaneers will do that, but I do think that's a conversation worth having because the Buccaneers, right now, their Buccaneers' two safeties are strong safety Ryan Neal and free safety Antoine Winfield Jr. They're both UFAs. So Cameron Kitchens would be my pick here.
Yeah,
but I say for Nix, I'll make Nix the selection, assuming that Buccaneers don't pick on time. But I'm nominating Kitchens.
I'm with you. I think it's Cam Kitchens. I think if Tampa's going to take Bo Nix, they're going to take him at 10, which I think is a huge reach in my opinion. But I think it's Kitchens. I think is where we have to go on this one.
Yep. So we'll wait till 5 to make Kitchens the official pick before we let Colton know that he's back on the clock with the Raiders.
Yep.
So Kitchens will be the pick, assuming.
Yep, I'm assuming that's
and
probably
LAFC's shot wide, hits the post. I don't like that LAFC bought their entire team through free agency. At least the Columbus Crew drafted their goalie Patrick Schultz in the first round out of St. Louis in the 2022 MLS Super Draft. It's 4:59. With 3 minutes of stoppage time are up. Columbus will take a 2-0 lead in the half, most likely, and it's 5 p.m. So I'm going to make Kitchens the official pick.
Yep.
And the Raiders are on the clock now.
Raiders on the clock. I think this is Bo Nix. As much as I don't want it to be, I think it's going to be Bo Nix here.
Colton is on the clock here.
Yep. I think just with how they're lining up, that's the way it's going to be.
So Cameron Kitchens is gone. But yeah, this is going to be interesting here. I'm not going to pick Shedeur Sanders. If anybody else wants to pick him, they can because I think he's going back.
Yeah, I think he's going. I think if Nix goes here, I think the next QB that probably declares, I think it's probably going to be Spencer Rattler.
Rattler's already declared, and Pratt's in the Senior Bowl. Pratt and Rattler are both in the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, I think it's going to be
I'd
Pratt
go
or
with Quinn
Rattler.
Ewers. Quinn Ewers would probably be my top QB available. I've got Ewers graded ahead of Bo Nix here, to be honest. But I
Yeah,
think
I do
probably
I do as well. I think I have Ewers, then Knicks, and then I have Pratt / Rattler
But I'm pretty
after
certain
that.
well, I'm pretty certain that, yep, Colton's taking Bo Nix. That's official, guys. So that is
Yep.
officially official.
All right.
Chargers are up. They're not in the market for a QB. They could
No.
go with Tyleek Williams. The Chargers did take Romo Dunes in the first round.
Yep. And I think the only reason they took O'Dunes is because they wanted Newton and the Raiders sniped at the pick before. I think it has to be Tyleek Williams.
I agree. It's got to be.
Are they active on here?
That's what I'm looking for.
Because I'd like to trade with them for Jacksonville.
Yeah, the Jaguars. I mean, there's a lot of talent still on the board. I mean, there is. There's a lot of talent here.
Yeah.
You can't really be upset with who's available at this point in the draft.
Looks like
I would probably go Tyleek Williams, but do the Chargers have any UFAs that they can drop?
believe that is Tyler, PFF star. I just tagged him in the chat, letting him know he's on the clock.
Okay.
Chargers did cut J.C. Jackson at corner. Is there a corner worth taking here? I don't know if there is.
It depends on how you view Tyler Nubin. I think he's more safety than corner.
I agree.
I think if you say that if you want to put him as a nickel corner, then yeah, you would take him here. But I think he's more safety than corner. The best corner on the board, in my opinion.
Best corner not named Tyler Nubin is Kamari Lassiter. And it feels like a slight reach this early.
Yeah, so
right. I have Abrams Drain as Missouri.
I
and
like
then
Max
I have
Melton.
Lassiter.
I like Abrams Drain. Abrams Drain impressed me versus Georgia. Max Melton impressed me versus Ohio State before his injury. And then you got some corners like Cam Hart, Notre Dame, and Kyrie Jackson, Oregon. Cam Hart's my favorite man cover corner outside of Kool-Aid. And I think the best press corner in this draft is Kyrie Jackson of Oregon. And those are players you can get later. So that's why I really haven't entertained the idea of picking a corner here.
Right.
If they aren't there, would I be able to put in a trade for that pick potentially? So I'm trying to figure it out because I'm very much interested.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to trade if the owner isn't present.
Okay.
Yeah, he just posted that he's on the clock. He said bet, so we'll give him a couple of minutes.
I agree.
Now that he's here, but he is there. He is in chat. Should you want to make him an offer?
I mean, there's a lot of good receivers. I could take a receiver in the third round, but there's still a lot of good receivers. I think a receiver is going to be there at 66 personally. I know I shouldn't be giving away my plans or tipping my hand, and I know I am doing that, but this is a pretty deep class. I think somebody's going to be there regardless of how it goes.
Right. So he's wondering what corners are there,
Lassiter,
like we just discussed. Lassiter and Abrams Drain.
There's Kyrie Jackson, there's Cam Hart. I don't know what Don Garber's talking about, but I'd imagine it's the San Diego FC expansion team.
So that's what I think. That's probably where the Chargers are going to go is corner here.
I am in agreement. Lassiter is available. Lassiter's the pick.
Yep, Lassiter is the pick there at 43. So Philly on the clock at 44.
Yeah, Howie Roseman got Trotter Jr. at 32. What's going to happen at 44?
That is Brennan's selection. So Brennan, I'm going to mention him so that way he knows he's on the clock.
And the Bears are on deck, folks. The Bears are on deck thanks to the trade they made with New Orleans, and they get Brock Bowers plus this pick. Yeah, they're showing highlights of the MLS Next Cup. Valentin Noel, the player I interviewed on my podcast, he had the game-winning goal in that game. Columbus has lost the MLS Next Cup 2 years in a row, but they can win the MLS Cup. The MLS Next Cup is minor league soccer. Yeah.
Got some trade action and happened. Jacksonville's offering everybody to move up here.
2 so far, but
yeah. Chicago looks like they're interested, talking about pick 45.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're only going to make that deal if the Eagles don't.
Yeah.
The player you want. If the Eagles take the player you want.
Well, I'm thinking they're probably going to take the player I want, which is why I was trying really hard to get up with Los Angeles. But we'll see.
Yep. I know he was heading to take a quick shower here, but mentioning him in chat, so in that way, because he'll be away from his computer.
No, it definitely trade up if I hadn't taken Nedge already, because Tweemalau would be pretty good around this point.
Mm-hmm.
Aiden Morris and Darlington Nogby, 84 for 87 on passes in the first half. If someone certain isn't taken, I'll do it. We'll see what happens with the Eagles here.
Yep. I know he had pinged me in X chat and sent me a list of players for him. So I'm making sure before we pull the trigger. Because I think only one is
Shohei
gone.
Ohtani now is making more money than Tuvalu, Naulu, Kiribati, Palau, the Marshall Islands, Micronesia, Tonga, Sao Tome and Principe, and Dominica. So Shohei Ohtani is making more money than those 9 islands, 9 country, 9 nations.
I'm going to give Brennan a couple more seconds here.
All right.
But he did provide me with a list of names.
Yeah, Mark Madden, the Steelers radio announcer, said the Steelers' style is outdated, almost prehistoric compared to the high-octane football that wins in today's NFL. And Tomlin doesn't want to evolve. Tomlin's at the top of the pyramid for everything that's gone bad. The Steelers now is when it gets proven. There is never more of a reason to extend Tomlin to make sure Mark Madden is never happy. All right. We'll wait. Okay, I should mention that Restream, I think Restream only goes up to 10 or 12 hours, and I think then it stops. So so I'm just giving everybody a heads up. I don't think we're going to be here that long.
No,
but
I would say probably we'll do to the end of round 2, so then that way everybody, including the Cleveland Browns, get to make a selection. And then we can call it at that.
Round 3 would go until probably 3.5 hours from now. So,
I'm willing to do round 3, but I mean, I feel like we would have to stop after round 3. I'm willing to do round 3 depending on how quickly we get through round 2.
So I did just speak with Brennan, and his pick is in. It is Javon Bullard, cornerback, Georgia.
Nice pick. Back-to-back Bulldogs come off the board. Kirby Smart's got to be happy about that. And Howie Roseman gets himself another Bulldog. The Bears are up at 45 unless the Jaguars pull up some sort of trade here.
Yep. And now I'm intrigued to see who Jacksonville's trying to jump up for.
Yeah, we'll see what he says.
Oh, so he's still trying to trade.
I kind of want to do round 3, but if you guys want to stop after round 2, I can respect that. But yeah.
I'm going to be off here after whenever I select this pick.
Yeah, I was just saying,
maybe
I'm
I
going
could.
to stick around till the Browns make a selection, and then after that, I'm going to hop off.
I would.
Appreciate it.
I'd still make my 3rd rounder, but
Yeah, I'll come back to make my 3rd, but
all right. It sounds like
cover is approving 57, 110, and 202, and it is agreed. So Jacksonville.
Okay, so
All right.
I'll
Tower Newman.
propose the trade here. The Jaguars, the Bears, 57. Apparently, the draft simulator has 106 and 202.
That's fine.
157, 106, and 218 for 45. I will, if that does not get approved, I will try. I'll try trading that to the Jaguars, and if that doesn't work, 45 for 57, 106, and 218. So both trade proposals were declined. I will throw in a 2025 third-round pick. I'm not throwing in a second or first.
I would not do that if I was saying a 3rd-round pick as well, but
yeah, just to force it. I think
Okay.
what will happen is we're doing it to force it in the actual simulator because the simulator rejects it.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, if we have to, we can always just select the player for that team that's listed, and then it pulls them from.
All right. The simulator approved that trade. So the simulator was compassionate enough to let you keep your 1st and 2nd round picks in 2025.
All right. So it's going to be Tyler Nubin. He was the air guy I was going to pick 1st round. I like Chop Robinson more, but I felt like Nubin would fall because his position he plays, and this is us getting right on missing Brian Branch last year.
Nice. So Tyler Nubin coming off here.
And the Giants are back on the clock at 46. We already went Malik Neighbors and Denzel Burke. I'm thinking Quinn Ewers here for the Giants. We both have a high 2nd on him. I'm thinking Quinn Ewers to the Giants. Do you have any objections at that?
Was he returning?
Quinn Ewers, Texas. He hasn't announced whether or not he's returning yet.
Okay. I thought that was the rumor.
I would say if he returns, I think at this point.
He hasn't officially returned yet, though. That's the thing.
Well, I say this. If he does return, I stick at Texas and go Tavondre Sweat, the defensive tackle out of Texas, I think.
All right.
That'd be good.
Yeah, I say if
the Giants do have Dex Lawrence at nose tackle, one of the best in the league.
Right.
So
I say if you don't go Ewers here, I say you go Sweat or
let's go with Ewers. I think he's declaring.
Yeah. I say I posted in the chat that he was on the clock or who was assigned to him.
I'll wait. I'm not gonna make the pick yet.
Right.
All right. I am gonna sign off. Thank you guys for hosting this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining.
Yep. Have a great day.
Have a good one. So we'll see. I would say I would say at this point, consensus, if we're both in agreement, I think it's got to be Ewers.
Yeah. So most people saying 2 sounds fine. Mm-hmm. And look, I'm not opposed to doing 3 rounds, but 2 things have got to happen. We got to have Colton here next time once he gets his microphone, and the audio's got to be better on Restream.
Right.
It's been a lot better since I moved into the living room.
Right. I think it's great. I think once everybody's here and there's actual time, it won't get stretched out as far.
I think if we do this after the underclassmen deadline, once we know who's officially in the draft, it'll go a lot smoother.
Yep. Agreed. So I say Ewers here.
Ewers is the pick. That's official. The Rams are up at 47.
Which they went with.
I can just click on the team. Jared Verse.
Yeah, they went Jared Verse with their first round selection.
For them last time.
I would say
Morgan's available. I do like Jordan Morgan. They do need. I mean, they moved. They benched Joseph Noteboom and they have Alaric Jackson at left tackle. I do like Jordan Morgan for the Rams here.
Yep, I say either Morgan or Abrams, Drain, or Melton at corner. I say you go either tackle or corner if you're the Rams here.
I agree. Those are all good options here for the Rams. We'll give them a few more minutes to make a pick, though.
Yep, which, scroll back up here. Yeah, it looks like there wasn't anybody listed for the Rams, so we can go consensus.
Yeah, we'll
so
go Jordan Morgan.
All right, Morgan it is. All right, Cincinnati is on the clock now. Let's see who we got for Cincy.
Bengals took Fuaga at 17 to replace Jonah Williams. That's a great pick for them.
Right.
Tyleik Williams is there if they want a defensive tackle. There's a ton of receivers there. Sweat is there.
Right. I'd say Sweat's there. I would say probably either Sweat or you're going to bank on Higgins being gone, and then you can go Xavier Worthy or Leggett, which I think that it was. I think it was Robert that was the Bengals. I'm scrolling back up to the list, the screenshot of all the teams. Yep, it was. So we're going to post in the chat that he is on the clock. I would say if I am him, I'm probably banking on Higgins being gone, and I'm going best receiver, either Leggett or Worthy.
Yeah, I'm open to a trade up here. Only reason I say that is because I wanted to get a tackle and a receiver and a quarterback. If we're only doing a 2-round mock, I'm trading up for receiver.
Right.
Screw it. We were doing 3 rounds, I would have kept my picks. But since we're only doing 2 rounds today, I am going to try to move up for a receiver. Screw it. The kid gloves are coming off, and I'm officially playing hardball.
Right. Normally, I'd be open to a trade down, but since we only have one selection at 55, I'm going to
I respect that. You should decline. You should.
Johnny says Johnny looks like he might be intrigued on your trade-up option. Johnny is Minnesota, so it could be worth an option.
Yeah, at 52.
And Brandon's looking to move off of 64 as well.
So if the Bengals do not pick on time.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're about a minute in. I posted he was on the clock at 5:18, so we'll give him another minute or two, and then we can – do we want to go wide receiver here, or do we want to go defensive tackle?
Let's go – we'll go best player available for the Bengals here. They could go – I do think receivers a need too, though, but I also feel like they could go best player.
Yeah, and go. I would say Tyleik Williams at that point, which also does somewhat fit a need for them a little bit.
Yeah, agreed.
So
they do have DJ Reader, who's a UFA, I believe. I think they have BJ Hill extended.
Yep.
But they don't have Reader extended after this year. And Tyleik's probably the only player in this draft who might be able to replace Reader.
Looks like we're at the 2-minute mark, so we can lock in Tyleik Williams at defensive tackle for Cincinnati.
Sounds like a plan. The Bills are on the clock. They did take a receiver in the first round.
Yep. So Buffalo is on the clock. And I'm
thinking if the Bills have every defensive tackle outside of Ed Oliver set to be a UFA, I'm thinking Sweat if they don't pick on time.
Yeah, I was gonna say
open and shut case.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it has to be Sweat. If since he didn't take him, I think it has to be Sweat here. Which I'm just scrolling back through. Looks like we had to do consensus on Buffalo, so I would say we lock in consensus for him and go Sweat here.
Yeah, Sweat's the pick.
Okay.
Texans are up at 50.
Texans.
I mean, you got Leggett still available, as is Worthy. Both of those receivers are available here.
I don't know. I don't know if they go receiver again because they went Franklin.
And they've still got Tank Dell and they've still got Nico on a rookie deal. They don't need another receiver.
I would go Lowell out of Ohio State.
I agree. Greenard's a free agent. Tuma Lowell is probably the best pick for the Texans at 50.
Yeah.
But I am open to trading up for either Leggett or Worthy at 52 with the Vikings. I'm willing to part with 66 and 98. Now, at a 7-round mock, I would not do this. But since this mock's only going to be 2 rounds, and I hate that we misled our audience and said it's only going to be 2 rounds. I do apologize to that.
Yeah.
Everybody expecting a 7-round draft stream. Look, people have stuff they want to do.
Right.
I could still be here, but like people have other stuff they want to do, and that's fine. Okay, it gives me either more time to work on writing code for week 15, or I can go to the movies and see Napoleon because I am starting to get a little tired. Maybe if I go to the movies and drink a Coca-Cola, have some refreshments, I'll have enough energy later when I get back from Napoleon.
Right.
Maybe that'll make me more tired. I don't know.
I was gonna say I don't think we have anybody else here aside from Brennan.
What does Minnesota want for 52? Because I'm thinking Tuamaloau is going to be the pick for Houston if they do not pick soon.
Yeah, I'm gonna say lock in Houston's Tuamaloau.
All right, Green Bay is now officially on the clock here at 51.
Yep, which they've gone Barton, offensive lineman, and Jalen Ford at linebacker. I would say probably safety is probably their next biggest need, but I just don't know if there's a safety available.
Best safety available is Rod Moore out of Michigan.
Yeah, I'd say he's probably a 3rd-round grade for me, and same for Bo Braid out of Maryland. I just don't, and if you look at best player
how do you
available,
feel about McKinley Jackson? The Packers moved Kenny Clark over to 34 right in. They have Tadarius Slayton as their current nose tackle. Slayton's not bad, but I think you can upgrade over him. How do you feel about McKinley Jackson of Texas A&M or Nazir Stackhouse out of Georgia?
I would say probably if I'm picking between those two, it's got to be McKinley. I think McKinley's just a better fit for what the Packers want to do.
I agree. McKinley Jackson's a good fit for what the Packers want to do here.
Yeah. So I would say
we'll wait a little bit until we finalize it, but that's kind of where I'm thinking, and I'm willing to offer the Vikings 66 and 98.
so.
Because I'll give up at this point the fact that Xavier Worthy's still here at 51. I'm willing to part with 66 and 98 to move up for Worthy because I know if he gets to 55, I'm not kidding him. You're probably looking for the Browns.
He's on my big board. I actually have a late 1, early 2 grade, so not even positional need, but just value alone.
Yeah, I agreed. I've got a first on him as well.
Mm-hmm. So I would say for the Packers, we can go ahead and we can lock in McKinley. just as a consensus.
Well, yeah, McKinley will be the pick, but we're waiting for the Vikings because I did
Yep.
make the Vikings a trade offer.
Yep.
And yeah, Worthy's still available. That's why I'm moving up.
Yeah,
But
I
I
think
mean, yeah, Worthy's still.
he was going to take Worthy for the Bengals.
Shit, the Bengals ran out of time. We went with Tyleek Williams. Shit.
Yep.
Sorry, man. It's just been a long day.
Yeah. Say, I don't know if he's going to respond on your trade offer. Which, if he doesn't, you start to look at what Minnesota needs in terms of.
Yeah, I don't think the Vikings need a receiver. They do lose
No.
KJ Osborne, but I mean they've still got Jefferson and Addison. They're not going to draft a Worthy as a slot receiver here. Now Atlanta
No.
could take Worthy at 53.
Yeah, I could see Atlanta going with Worthy there to give Penix an option. I just don't know on the board if you're Minnesota. I mean, you went quarterback with your first need. Do you start to have the running back conversation?
Yeah, my top running back is Blake Corum.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he'd go here.
I don't know if he goes here either. My top one is Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin, just because of his age and the fact that he can, high level, pad level, can bounce off defenders very easily. The only reason I mention that is Madison has not been the guy, and they've struggled trying to piece it together with Cam Akers and things like that. So I don't know. I would say.
Well, the good news for the Browns is the last time Jimmy Haslam and the Columbus Crew won the MLS Cup in 2020, the Browns made the 2021 NFL playoffs as the 6th seed. They knocked out the Steelers that year.
We are in the playoff race. 3 wins will probably get us in. With 5 to go, we do have a matchup with Chicago, Jets, and Cincinnati. So that's 3 right there. Hoping to pick up 1 more. Chargers are interested in trading back up. I just don't know if there's going to be anybody.
I'm also interested in trading back up, but
as I say, I don't think he is going to respond on your trade offer. So we may have to lock in for someone here in Minnesota.
We're going to have to lock in for someone here. I'm thinking, who's the top guard? I'm thinking Donovan Jackson. The Vikings did lose their left guard, Ezra Cleveland. They are going to need a new starting left guard in the draft. I'm thinking Donovan Jackson, Ohio State would be a good guard option for me.
I would say, I say guard is probably going to be their need. I agree with Donovan Jackson.
That's no sacks allowed. That's a good pick for the Vikings.
Yep.
All right, Atlanta's up.
I think Atlanta, you have the conversation of best edge rusher available, which it's tough to say. Maybe Braswell or Ellis. But I would say they're probably locking in on Worthy.
Yep.
We are on pick 53.
Yeah.
As to say, I think because I think consensus is probably going to be Atlanta here. Is probably going to be Worthy.
I agree. Worthy's the pick. I'm just trying to trade up for.
Yeah.
Like, I'm willing to give up 66 and 98 for Worthy at this point. Nobody wants to take my draft picks.
Right.
I'd probably do that for Leggett too, honestly, if I'm being completely honest.
Yep.
But if I can't get Leggett or Worthy, I'd probably keep my picks.
Right.
That's just the smart thing to do.
Right.
I mean, Lad McConkey went off against Ole Miss, but
he's a little undersized for me
I
at
agree.
185. I think if he adds about 20 pounds to his frame, he'd be a great receiver. But 185, especially at that height, is
Falcons need a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2, and that's got to be Worthy or Leggett at this point.
Yep. So I say we lock in Worthy for the Falcons.
My offer still stands, Pittsburgh, but if it doesn't happen.
Yep. So Worthy for the Falcons. So that puts Pittsburgh on the clock. I know Carson had. Carson had the pick at 54 for Pittsburgh. They went Kalen King in the first round at corner. I would say center is probably their biggest need here. I like SVP out of Georgia here. So I'm pinging Connor in the chat. We'll see if he responds. And then after that, Cleveland Browns finally 3 hours later on the clock.
Well, you and the other guy said the Crew would score a third goal before the Browns would be on the clock. That has not happened yet.
All right. So no response from Carson yet. I think we start talking about
taking round 1.
They went
They took
Kalen.
corner. They took corner.
Corner, yeah.
That's right. They took the corner.
I would say probably I say center, and I'm a fan of SVP.
Fran would be a good pick here.
Yeah, I say SVP is probably the selection for them.
Yeah.
So we'll give
agree.
Give
Browns,
them another minute.
55.
So we are on the clock finally. So 3 hours later.
Yeah,
so
my friend took a Browns selfie. Host of my podcast at 10 a.m. on Saturdays, Joey, took a Browns selfie with the Browns t-shirt he bought, the Kool-Aid shirt.
Nice. So, I mean, coming in, we had two big needs, and it's tackle and it's wide receiver for both different reasons. Tackle, we need to move on from Jed Wills. Declined his fifth-year option. Is just not the guy. But the way the board's fallen, there's not a tackle I feel comfortable taking here at 55. So now we look to receiver, and I'm gonna go with a guy who gets a few DK Metcalf comps. It's warranted based on his size. I think he's probably going to be pretty fast, and he's going to blow up at the combine and probably won't be here. But I'm going to go Xavier Legette, wide receiver, South Carolina.
Yeah, Colts are up. Hunter is on the clock at 56.
Yeah. So, and with that selection, I am going to politely bow out, but I appreciate everyone's time today. It was very fun, very enjoyable, and I look forward to doing the next one when Colton schedules the next one.
I agree.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Tyler, you're still here? I don't know. I sorry, I just realized you were here. That's on me. But if you want to say something, Tyler, you're welcome to. We are going to stop at pick 64. I appreciate everybody coming in, helping out with this.
What up?
What's up, Tyler?
How you doing?
Good.
So I've been doing this all day from work, so
That's fine. I think
good.
that's cool. Probably going to stop
I
after
was
pick
trying to
60.
figure out. I wanted to trade something. I wanted to trade with the Colts, but I didn't know
Colts
what I
are
was
on
going
the
to do.
clock.
I was going to throw like a third and fourth. I don't know. I want to get Brandon Dorless from Oregon. I'm the Chargers.
Hey, Cam.
It's fun though. And now the visuals are working on a restream, but regardless, it's been fun regardless.
Yeah, I enjoy this.
I keep going, but like everybody wants to stop after 2 rounds. I can respect that.
Oh yeah, it's been a while. It was cool keeping up. I was so with me looking at that. What I was really going to go to in my 12th pick in the beginning with the Chargers was I was going to go tight end, but the guy I wanted obviously was gone, Bowers, and so that's why I went with O'Dunes. I'm not too worried about defense because I am because obviously the pass defense is terrible this year. I think a lot of that has to go with scheming though with Staley. I think as soon as Staley's gone, I think that defense will turn around. They've been focusing on that defense for the past 3 years. We're the most expensive defense in the league. I think offensively, obviously you see how Herbert's still putting up numbers somehow, but literally with just Keenan Allen and a bunch of practice squad receivers. Obviously, Quentin Johnston can't catch a pass. So I think that's why I got with Rome that first pick because I know Mike's probably gonna be gone. Just because of how much money they're putting into that squad. Both Keenan and Mike alone are going to make over $60 million together next year. You can't keep both of them, especially with Herbert's contract. And then Khalil Mack and Bosa are both also making $60 million combined. So you're really on the verge of having to cut 2 guys, which I think ends up being Bosa and Mike. So that's why I went Rome first pick. Second pick, I went corner. And then that's why I want to trade up on this one to get Brandon Dorless edge to kind of fill in that void for Bosa.
We'll see here. Xavier Legette is Browns pick Legette.
It's a good pick too.
But the Chargers are trying to move up. I did tell him that. I didn't say what you'd be willing to give up, but I did say, we'll see what happens, though. Devondre Sweat's gone. Best. Malachi Corley is a Colt. Okay, Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky is an Indianapolis Colt. The Bears are up at 57. So the Bears are up. So that every receiver that I was interested in trading up for is gone. I'm not trading up for Ladd McConkey. I'd probably take him at 66, but I wouldn't trade up for him. But yeah, we've got 8 picks to go, and then we're done for the night after these 8 picks are in. What linemen are available? Best O-line on the board is – best tackle on the board is Guyton. I like Zach Frazier here as a replacement to Lucas Patrick. I think that's a really good value pick for the Bears if they want to go that route. Just like, yeah. And LAFC has scored in the 74th minute of the MLS Cup to make it a 1-goal game. So yeah, Schultz upset he didn't get the shutout, but you're up 2-1. You have 19 minutes to go. As long as LAFC doesn't score again, this thing won't go to overtime. Christian Haynes is the pick for Chicago. That Chiefs are up at 58. Yeah, so Buanga scored for LAFC. Is Roman Celentano injured? Did he get injured on that play? No, Patrick Schultz, the Columbus goalie, did he get injured on that play? So we'll find out. But yeah, that would be such a massive blow for Columbus. But yeah, the Chiefs are up 58. It looks like Patrick Schultz injured. Best edge At edge, we've got. It sounds like Schultz might be okay to play this out. The backup goalie is warming up though, and Brandon Dorless is there. Chiefs want to know the best edge there. Yeah, that would really piss you off, Tyler, if the Chiefs got Brandon Dorless. I think Tyler left, but I do appreciate him calling in. But yeah, LAFC's up. LAFC's making a substitution. Patrick Schultz, I think Schultz okay enough to play, but we'll find out what happens here. Dorless is a Chief. So Brandon Dorless is a Chief. The Lions have picked 59. There's nobody else on the stream. I might turn up the volume of the MLS Cup. I do want to hear the MLS Cup in the background, but I promise I'll keep the volume low. But the Lions are up. Lions, they took Fatanu. Lions do need an edge rusher, but I don't think they'd pick Braswell. I don't think they'd pick Lad McConkey, but hey, they do need a slot receiver, so I'm not opposed to Lad McConkey here. I like Byron Murphy a lot. All right, I'm gonna pick if you guys. I'm gonna go Lad McConkey. This is just taking forever. Okay, Dallas is up at 60. I'm gonna go Byron Murphy. This is just taking forever. Jatavian's there, but Jatavian's probably gonna be. I'm gonna go Byron Murphy for the Lions. Yeah. Check with the Navy helmet. Yeah, it's like, all right, Detroit is up. We'll go Byron Murphy. San Francisco. All right, so Byron Murphy is going to be the pick then. All right, 5 picks left. Dallas, Baltimore. Last 5 picks. Yeah, so I mean, Dallas is on the clock. I'm looking at what's available for Dallas. Rod Moore would make sense for Dallas here. Do you want Michael Hall Jr.? He's available. Michael Hall would make a lot of sense for Dallas here. Yeah. I'm getting pretty exhausted. I'm not gonna lie. Julian Gressel coming on the pitch for Farsi as a backup. I'm thinking Michael Hall for Dallas. Michael Hall Jr. it is. Last call if you've got any objections. All right, so Michael Hall Jr., we'll put him on Dallas here. The Ravens took a corner in the first round. I'm going to go – I'd go Abrams Drain, but, Bucky Irving. I'm going to go I'm going to go Blake Corum to the Ravens. I'm going to go Blake Corum for the Ravens here. Blake Corum is my top running back. So Corum's going to be the pick for the Ravens. The 49ers are going to get Guyton. Jatavian Sanders to the Dolphins. And wrapping up the first round mock, we've got the Eagles. And wrapping up this draft for the Eagles, we're going to give the Eagles Ladd McConkey, another Georgia Bulldog. And that'll do it, folks. This was fun. I will re-edit this video to fan-led NFL mock draft, 2 rounds. I'll edit the title. But, yeah, this was fun. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And if you couldn't hear due to the audio, I do apologize. But I'll go through the first 2 rounds one more time. I'm not going to go through pick by pick, but I will quickly scroll through each team. I'll quickly scroll through each team here. Slowly scroll through each pick so you can see who went where. And, yeah. I was trying to trade up for Leggett, and I was trying to trade up for receivers, but nobody responded. But, yeah. All right, that'll do it.